Welcome, misfits, to this episode of Skeptic and Ranting. Does God exist? Are they watching me? Where
Fighting all gods.
That's right. Call in. Please call now. We are discussing the age-old theological question of does a deity exist at all? So why won't you join James W. and myself, Amy Newman, for some fun that apparently transcends reality and cats?
Hey guys. Hey Dale.
What is up, everyone? I will say we are hopefully getting both a bunch of fun debates and hopefully a bunch of fun moderated debates coming up. So stay tuned and sending so much love, Jenna.
I've got a debate coming up.
Out there
It'll be a while, but
that's right. In fact, we have, I feel like, James, that's the headliner debates of all debates. You can announce now you are debating the
Pentover himself.
That's right, baby.
March 11th, standing for truth. We got a month to go, but it's coming up.
The Hawaiian shirts are coming on. Woo-hoo!
Give him the full 15 feet, Amy.
That's right, baby. And all right, sending love. In fact, I want to send
Hawaiian shirt for
everyone
Gizmo
out there on the interwebs, and of course Gizmo, who is the true producer of this podcast.
Executive producer.
Please don't forget to like, follow, or subscribe, because then you gain access to that bell icon to set to all to gain reminders to join our live streams. Woo-hoo. We are a skeptic channel, including the two schmucks that you see before you. Mm-hmm. However, after our opening statements and a discussion on the topic, we will be moving into the open mic and opening up the floodgates. That's right, babe. So you can tell us what is on your mind, and we'll give everyone the chance to give their own opening, closing, and statements. Atheist or theist, liberal or conservative, come as you are. Just not on my flags. God.
Used to be the sheets, now it's the flags.
I know. Well, I used to have to give warnings about the sheets. Now they just go right to the flags. James, the wiping I have to do. The wiping. Nonetheless, this
one
show...
of those COVID face shields.
Once again, it's science and technology that is saving us in the end. This show is sponsored by our Patreons who help us make even more fun content, which can be found at patreon.com/Amy Newman, including awesome Patreons like Tang Gang Yo Oz from the Round Table, and also Tart.live.
That network thing.
Woo! Send in love, Oz. And
thanks, Oz.
Yo. And also sending love as we level up in the non-believer community, Ian Davenport.
Ian. Thanks, Ian.
Thank you so much.
Long-time supporter.
Ian. That's right. And basically, he is the mod and flag out there on our Facebook page, where we're streaming out everywhere, baby. And...
everywhere that'll have us.
When we hear, that's right, everyone that'll have us, little lowly non-believers who are growing. We are the biggest, I know, at least in the States, category. If you don't put all the denominations together, we're actually the second largest denomination.
Oh.
Woohoo! But when we hear, creationist claims, when we hear really just a whole bunch of nonsense,
Religious claims, God claims.
Exactly. Well, it doesn't matter what the deity it is. It makes us and a grumpy old cuss go beep, 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 beep.
Thanks, Grumpy.
The YouTube gods, they have to attack us.
Yeah, they do, relentlessly.
And, we sometimes attack the Bible along with Diana Smith because they don't always, treat women quite the same as they do, well, what they would call, humans. Humans, that's the word.
But Amy, don't you remember the story where all the men got killed, but the little girls got to be sex slaves? So, I mean, that's better, I guess, maybe.
Well, now you're starting to get into biblical morality. I mean, now you're really talking about how we get into ethical conclusions. It said something in a book or something.
He must have had a reason, Amy. He must have had a reason.
It was. And that reason was like a really long time ago. So that kind of makes it more true if you think about it.
Oh, good point. I hadn't thought about that.
But yes, we are sending love.
Thank you, Diana.
Also sending love to Diana Smith and also the fantastic, basically the resident archaeologist of the podcast. We are sending love to Pat Lowinger.
Thanks,
who
Pat.
has done many fantastic Talk Skeptic to Me podcasts, like looking at how sacredness came to be and also how is absence of evidence of absence from a historical perspective.
We did that Halloween show.
Did the Halloween show, which was super spooky, and I would be remiss if I didn't just shout out his channel with the lovely and fantastic Biddy Buddha at youtube.com/Biddy Buddha. By sending love, Pat.
Thanks, Pat.
Woo-hoo. Who hopefully, I think there are going to be more fantastic Talk Skeptic to Me episodes coming soon, along with a whole bunch of more fun content.
Coming up? With permission?
With permission, on my knees. Where's Peter's soundboard? Sending love out there. And also...
Gavin.
Oh my goddess, I would be remiss if I didn't have to send love. Gavin, are you down there? I was watching a debate on Praise's channel, and I believe it was Old Earth and Young Earth, and I don't know how to say this. I may have been agreeing with Gavin. Oh.
Yeah.
He was referencing things like oil deposits taking millions of years to form.
To create, yeah.
I can't help but say that's true. Oh, see,
yeah. The idea to think all that oil deposits all over the earth to run all the cars was made 6,000 years. No.
Well, I always, that's one of my biggest wonders for just young Earth creationism is just how they do anything. Like, really, you can't form, like, once you go out your little bubble, it's like, well, how do you form a star?
Gavin, that's him.
How do you form...
Oh, no, don't worry about that, silly atheist. God just went poof, and the stars were there. And God just decided to put this magical black stuff in the crust of the earth for us to discover that would do things like power our cars and things like that. He just put it there, Amy.
Look, James, you just got to have faith. It's what it really comes down to, which I'm sure is a fantastic way for finding truth.
I'm sure I'll get into plenty of stuff like that during my debate with Kent Hovind.
Oh, my.
March 11th, Standing for Truth.
Woo-hoo, which I am sure is going to be fantastic. And then an after show, it seems to be on the fantastic Atheist Juniors channel. with
That is the tentative plan. Yeah.
youtube.com/atheistjunior.
Thanks, AJ.
And if there are
What
more
a great guy. What a great
non-believers out
channel.
there, I want to support you too, because we are so Big Tent. I'm going to keep on saying that every week, nonstop, because we don't split. We don't schism. And so we can just kind of love everybody. Exactly. We don't have to stab each other for differing views. And generally speaking, the funny thing about it is that when you shed a lot of the religious baggage, we generally converge on a lot of facts, like the age of the earth and things we don't have to argue about anymore.
You have to realize there were hundreds of years where the Protestants and Catholics were killing each other based on the nature of the Eucharist, the Lord's Supper. Ooh, Amy, is it really the blood and body of Jesus? Is it the blood and body in
He tells me so
form of bread? Or is it only the body and blood of Christ in a metaphorical sense? Or does it really become body and blood of Christ? Your answer to that question could get you tied to a stake and burned.
I find that question interesting because it puts up the possibility that you could have Jesus as an appetizer. But
and you can every day at any Catholic church. They all do the morning mass. So go stop by and pick up some Jesus on your way to work.
He goes great with like a little bit of cheddar. It's fantastic. Along with my yoga teacher. He also goes great with cheddar.
Nick Suter in chat.
Woohoo!
Nick Suter goes great with cheddar.
I see so many lovely people out there. I see Shane the Skeptic. I see Roger Shrum, Regos, Randolph.
Jenna come in.
So many awesome people. Sending love to Jenna. Sending love to Best in Show. We were speaking. Dale Pastel has us just asking, and I know they hate us asking for empirical evidence. It's like we have to take it here and we have to put it over here. And they're like, now that we've put empirical evidence over here, what will convince you of a God? And you're like, over there. Right over there.
Anecdotal claims, maybe. Baseless assertions.
Oh, yeah.
Baseless assertions, yeah.
I had a vision in the dentist's office, but, you know, was very real to me. Very real to me.
Oh, but Amy, Bill Gates said DNA is way too complicated for humans to form. It had to be something way smarter than us. Like, oh, AJ's like, oh, you mean Bill Gates, the lifelong atheist? Well, he won't be when he dies. Haha, suck it, Bill.
Which is just a threat. That is just you don't have an argument.
Idle threat.
Lowball threats. Yes. You'll get there. You'll see. You'll burn forever. Thanks.
God will kill you and then do mean things to you after you're dead.
Because he loves you. That's how much he loves you. Forever. Do you get to halfway through eternity? Do you get to stop roasting? Well, you know the thing about eternity. Can't really stop halfway.
That's true. That's true. But if it goes on forever, could it have ever started? Because you would never get to forever. When would the torment have started?
I mean, once you got to your first forever, it would just have begun.
And this is very important, people, because listen, God did not want to force people to worship him. He refused to do it. That would be like rape. That would be like raping someone if he forced you to worship him. So he had to put up some other place to send people who don't want to spend eternity worshiping him. And he had to make it a little uncomfortable. So there you go. But you do have free will.
I was going to say.
You can worship him or you can burn. It's your choice. It's your choice. It's your choice, Amy. You choose. Worship him forever or burn. It's up to you. Your free will.
Exactly.
Free will.
Free will. That's the daily double, James. That's the key. They just shout that a bunch of times, and somehow, hell actually isn't that bad of a concept because you kind of set yourself there if you don't think about it.
Right. So the rapist can tell the police officer, no, 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 she consented. Oh, maybe because you were holding a knife to her throat? Doesn't matter. She said okay. I mean,
Exactly, James.
that's still consent.
Once again, we know where the complaint department is. You can find it right here. But yes, we're sending love.
Thanks, Kat. That it does, Kat. Thanks, Dale.
Woo-hoo. Exactly. Hey, I will say, if I had to choose between being cold and being warm, definitely going to choose being warm. And the logistics of Satan just never make sense. He either works for God or he is in true rebellion, in which we should be partying down there. Should be having a great... I don't know why he would torture us unless he's working for God. Like, is he God's narc? I don't get the situation.
Don't ask me.
I know.
Talk to Bob Larson about that. Ask right. Bob. He'll tell you all about it.
I'm sure he knows. They have an apologetic. It's like Rule 34. We should create create a new rule. There's an apologetic for everything. Rule 37. But yes, sending love.
That's a commander level.
At the commander level, of course. Along with Dave Gar, who reminds us.
Thank you, Dave Gar.
Yeah, the Earth kind of looks a little thick. Not hating, more to love, but it must be our fisheye eyes, James. That must be what does it.
That has a lot to do with it.
See it. So sending love, Dave Gar, and also. To the people who can't write a real theory. I love that. It's just a theory, Germ theory of disease, I was going to say the theory of gravity, but I guess the flat earthers can't catch up to that one either.
Yeah, they're not down with that one.
But yes, sending love, and also sending love to the lead hyena of the Pat Scott Duke.
Scott Duke. You made a stream the other day, like last week, when we had a 9 o'clock stream, something like that. He was actually made one.
Well, sending love. We send love to the Scott Duke, as well as Answers in Atheism, channel that I think he hangs out a lot. And I'm sending love to Speed over there. And we're really just sending love to all the non-believers and our theist brothers and sisters, too, though you should join the open mic later. And also sending love. We always tempt them, though we had a good showing. It was like 3 theists.
We had a few the other day.
Last time. So it gets me
at least one of them wasn't crazy.
It's right. And sending love to Regos, who
thank you, Regos.
Remind us of our thespian Bible study, which we read chapter to chapter, word for word-ish. And in order, because that's the important part. We don't skip any of the quote-unquote boring stuff. The fact there even is boring stuff in an inspired word of God is kind of a funny notion, isn't it?
It's that damn priestly source guy. He was into all that shit, all that rituals and sacrifices and let's do another census. I know we just did a census 2 chapters ago, but let's do another census. How about one of those?
It's the inspired census of God.
That where everything always ends in a round number. So if you were the 35,001, sorry, buddy.
It turns only out God has OCD. Very relatable.
In this tribe. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, and tribalism is the name of the game.
Booyah.
Chosen. Key thing.
Thank you, Patreon.
We like our chosen people. Woo-hoo. Thank you so much, Dave. So much, Regos. And
hey, Amy. Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, hey, Amy. Huh? That's my name. Don't.
I was going to say, I just heard from the creator of the universe, Amy, and he picked the people out of the whole world. He picked the people. Guess who it is, Amy? It's us. He picked
Yes,
us.
I knew it.
He doesn't like any of the other peoples. He says they all suck, but we're pretty cool. He will hang with us.
I
He doesn't like
knew
these
it was the
Canaanites. He doesn't like
others.
the Egyptians. Yeah. He doesn't like them. They're not cool like we are.
See, and that was going to be my guess. If I had to guess who the chosen people were, it was going to be us. And who weren't, I was going to say everyone else. It feels so good to be chosen. Thank you, God.
They don't cut the tip off of their sons' penises. I mean, what barbarians.
Yeah, that seems to be the new thing. I've seen an attack. They're like, well, if you hate female genital mutilation, why don't you take male genital mutilation? You're like, we're not do you know what the job is? The job description? We don't think you should do genital mutilation. Like, we don't have a God quota. There isn't like a book telling us, I don't know, that the perfect things that we created actually, well, we need to take some off the top. But I mean, I accept everybody out there. I don't care what you do. We just recommend.
Circumcised or not.
Yeah, look, if you are an adult and you're having fun, go out there and make your heart sing, if that's the organ that you think I'm talking about. Nonetheless, we are sending last, but certainly not least, we are sending love to Rachel. Contractually obligated TOS song. Thank you, YouTube gods. But thank you, Rachel, who reminds us, of course, that the Bible would never condone biblical slavery.
The Bible's ahead of the curve on that.
Exactly. It was a works program. They totally were all happy and had googly eyes on them. Totally cool.
I mean, Amy, you got to think they didn't have like children and family services back then. So if you were having family financial troubles, you didn't have just somebody else who could help take care of the kids. You had to sell your kids into slavery, because then at least they would have somebody to take care of them.
Come on. Who hasn't gotten into a pickle and then sold your daughter into slavery at least once? I mean, come on.
I'll buy you back, honey.
Biblically speaking,
we'll buy you back, honey, when the next harvest comes in. Don't worry about it.
Perfect morality.
Just take these knee pads with you on your way to your new abode. You'll probably be needing them.
Hey, and I'm glad we just can't change it. That's what I really like about it. Once again, all inspired words of, what's the key word of today? Thank you, God. Oh man.
Thanks, God.
But yes, I want to thank all of our Patreons who enable us to make fun content, our mods, of course, the people in chat, and viewers like you.
Taco eaters everywhere.
And before we go into some discussion,
shit. Here it goes.
Oh my, and then the open mic, we're pulling out the big guns.
She's pulling it out. They're ready. 15 feet.
Oh my, which is exactly how much I need of a whale. Anyway, does God exist? No. Or at least, there's no good evidence to believe one exists. In fact, non-belief is the null hypothesis, or the starting point. The bare minimum, because we currently lack any evidence to convince a skeptic. And the burden of proof, or the person who should be offering up evidence in the first place, is the believer, or really anyone who makes a claim. That's because if we believed everything until we were proven false, we would be stuck believing really anything we wanted. There are literally an endless number of scenarios that are untestable. Thus, the rational position is to not believe in something until after we have keywords sufficient evidence. Which brings us back to God. Sure, it's enough to just believe a deity exists because of crappy arguments and a whole lack of peer-reviewed paperwork. But let's dig deeper. What are some good reasons to think God doesn't exist? Well, let's start with some of these deities' proposed methodologies of transferring information. Holy books are not a reliable source. Sometimes they get something historically accurate and even say something moral. However, more often than not, they're just making shit up as they go along. Or more likely, borrowing stories from their neighbors. Adam and Eve did not exist. Therefore, no original sin exists. Therefore, Jesus did not have a blood sacrifice.
Jesus a bit.
Hashtag. Also, Muhammad was not the last prophet because the first one didn't exist. Oh yeah, let's not forget Moses wasn't real. Nor does the ability of prophethood seem logical. I have yet
Plausible or probable
to meet anyone who can actually talk to a god. Though, yes, many claim they do. So, I don't know why an all-powerful God would once again pick chosen people. Oh, yeah. And not just matrix this crap into our brains. With that settled, revelation and prophecy is off the table. Up until we can get a God or one of his chosen people into the lab, which many creationists will cry foul about, while also claiming that God or prayer can indeed affect the physical realm. Like to see that. Like with miracles that are supposed to happen before our eyes. Though, ever since those eyes became digital, those miracles have become rather tame. No more parting the Red Sea, walking on water, cutting the moon. Grandma survived lung cancer, which is evidence that God wants her to survive, or that she has good insurance. I know where my bet lays, and science rarely gets the due credit for what religion seems to lack, which, if we've been counting, is a methodology for finding truth. I'll finish with 3 more reasons I don't think a God exists. The first is that apologetics are bad. Look at the trees. I can hold a banana. The kalam is a good argument. Laughter all around. The second is divine hiddenness. Or rather, if this God exists, where the F does he or she or they seem to be? I know their holy books tell of their grand adventures and their greatest hits. But I'm really into the whole meeting people one-on-one thing in real life. Which brings me to my final and a personal reason for me. Consciousness currently is a function of the animal brain, helping us walk on a landscape so we can eat yummy, yummy food and get away from danger. There may be artificial versions one day, but even then, I believe they will need a physical substrate, something to call a body, which would make a deity go against everything we currently know about the subject of biology, neurology, and physics. So, does God exist? No. Or at least, I don't believe so. Which means I'm an agnostic atheist. Though theist, feel free bring new evidence to blow my mind.
Oh,
Thank you.
I'm sure they've got it. They've got it in the canon.
Oh, I bet they do. It was a few thousand years in waiting, but this is the year, James. I can feel it. Can you feel it?
I can feel it. Yeah, I feel. Can you feel that, Captain Compost?
I can. And so, all right, theologically, biblically speaking, of course, does God exist?
Biblically, well, we certainly don't have any good reason to think that he does. So I don't know if you guys watched the debate the other day on modern day debate versus apostate prophet. So to start the debate off, right, we got treated to a nice helping of the Kalam, which, in a nutshell, I like to say is when they say, "Why is there something rather than nothing? You don't know, therefore God," which is kind of really all that they have. Because you see, we used to have actually quite a few gaps in human knowledge. There were lots of things that we didn't know. We didn't know our ass from a hole in the ground 2,000, 3,000 years ago. But we've slowly but surely been learning more and more and more. And what's been happening to that is the gaps in our knowledge have been shrinking. And they're running out of room to find gaps in our knowledge to hide their God, because they always have to hide him just outside of our ability to perceive. And the two sticking points, like where their last bastions of hope to cling to this delusion, this idea that they get to live forever and that death doesn't apply to them, which is really, I think, the strongest motivation for this. But the reason they cling to hope for that is origin of the universe. We don't understand currently where, why, how the universe came to be. Neither do they. They just basically assert that they know, but they don't know. Nobody knows. Nobody has a freaking clue where the universe, why, how, what. We don't know. But odds are it's not going to be through any type of theological explanation. Then of course, you have on the other hand, life science, origin of life, which I'll be discussing about with Kent Hovind next month on the Standing for Truth channel. But so as our knowledge is increased, we have been answering questions that humans had not known answers to for a long time. And wouldn't you know, 100% of the time, every single time we found an answer, that answer was a natural process to explain things that had no good explanation before, like the diversity of life, a complicated, long-term natural process that can take life from Luca and billions of years later, through evolution, you can have the diversity, the amazing abundance of life that we see on Earth. And it took a long time for people to figure that out, but they did. And there's no magic required. And if life doesn't require magic to exist and to function, why would we think that it required magic to get started? That's a silly proposition. It doesn't function with magic. Probably didn't need magic to get it started. There's no reason to think that we need a God for any of this. And we don't see any impact of God anywhere. If we look in the universe, we have exactly what you would expect if you wanted to imagine a universe where stuff just happens. Particles and energy obeying the laws of physics, because that's all we ever see happen. We've never seen anything else happen. So there's no reason for us to think that somewhere behind the universe, outside the universe, curled up in another dimension of the universe, that there's a God hiding, because we don't see him having any impact on really anything. And what is the Christian song that they like to play? Like, our God is an awesome God. I used to hear that in church all the time. Like, he reigns from heaven above with wisdom, power, but he doesn't reign anything. I mean, he reigns the world like Queen Elizabeth reigns Australia. I mean, he reigns by not doing anything. He reigns in title only, because he doesn't have any tangible impact on the world. We've never been able to measure any impact that he's had. Everything that we see done is done by people. Sometimes people do bad things sometimes people do good things in his name. But he doesn't get the credit for that. The people get the credit for it, even if they're just doing it because they think they're appeasing some God that doesn't exist. I still think there's got to be a shred of humanity and decency in people, because there are people who take it the complete opposite way and do terrible things in God's name. So at least those people are making the better choice. But no, there's no reason to think that there's a God. We have no evidence for a God. We don't have a need for a God. So, of course, the correct position in that is to wait to withhold belief until you are given a reason to believe. But we just don't have that yet. So, thank you, guys.
Thank you so very much, James.
Oh, yeah.
And all right, we are just going to talk about the subject for a little bit, and then we are going to go into the open mic. So if you have some ideas about the subject, start to gather them now.
Oh, yeah.
We are talking, does God exist, as we skeptic and rant?
Thanks very much.
And I mean, this is probably our bread and butter. We can't help ourselves.
This is it. Give us another helping.
It's true. And, I consider myself I have to parse this out. Although I would consider many of my positions anti-theist, I am not against theists in general. I love my theist
Not as
brothers and
people.
sister, but I do view it as one of the most popular worldwide superstitions.
Delusion, if you want to even
Well,
take it
and
that
let's
far.
talk about that, because I the word game's hard. You know, when we talk
It
about
is.
words like delusion, cult, but let's talk about that for a second. What
Yeah.
separates out? Because, you know, a lot of religious people look at me, and it doesn't, we don't even have to say, I can just throw the entire letters out there. They just go LGBTQ and then blah blah blah. You guys are delusional. But then we look at them, and there are LGBTQ religious people. So and we say, well, you guys, you know, they hate when we say sky daddy, when we
Oh, they hate
use
that. Yeah.
language that hints at that. But I do believe that when they use that, when they're praying, and when they are, let me parse this out. I believe when they're praying, they are speaking to themselves. I believe you are having a conversation with yourselves. And I believe when
Yeah.
you are saying God loves you and all this stuff, or even God wants to see you burn, either way, I do believe that's actually a reflection of you. I believe they are using that as kind of a anthropomorphized version of their beliefs.
Yeah. That probably does play into it. I mean, I guess on the other side, there are some probably people who like might take an anti-LGBT position because of religion, and then once they walk away from religion, they have no problem dropping that
Oh,
and
I
saying,
would say, I don't want to put a statistic on it, but there seems to be, and once again, correlation isn't always causation. I have to keep on putting asterisks, but there seems to be a heavy causation. Once you leave religion, especially fundamentalist religion, this young earth,
right,
all of this nonsense just seems to drift away. You're like,
right.
why was I so gung ho about evolution? That just seems so random. And the Big Bang, and my
Why do I care
gay
who
LGBTQ
they
brothers and
sleep with?
sisters.
And
Exactly. Also, how silly is this? I mean, it's just ad absurdum to me that a God cares about gay people. Like, to them, it's
yeah,
very important. And I guess it is very important because I don't want to die. But it just showcases how silly a God is. That he's like,
it's
ew,
primitive Bronze
gays.
Age man. Yeah, it just goes to show that this is the work of primitive man who's like, ew, that's icky. I don't want to watch two guys go at it. So maybe we should, from taking it that that's not your preference to there's something morally wrong with it, we should kill them, is a very primitive
And I
way of
mean,
thinking.
once again, they use this. This is the objective morality for all of the Abrahamic religions. It doesn't matter if it's Judaism, Christianity, or Islam. I know the Christians try and parcel that out by saying it's just the Old Testament, but it's kind of the Bible. They kind of stick it in there for a
It's,
reason.
they use it when it suits their needs. They disavow it when it doesn't. And that's the thing when you have a book that's so big like the Bible, it takes at some point or another every position on almost every issue. So you can back up just about anything using a carefully arranged assemblance of verses. You can say almost anything, and they do. By the way, they do, because how many denominations do we have all picking fights about one verse or
It's
different
why
interpretations?
it's why it'd be silly almost universally for atheists to have canon battles with,
Right.
like, what does it actually say, unless just to show a literal version. Like, no, it says, look, it says stone them right there.
I mean,
But
it's like if you look at like science, the questions that science is asking today are radically different from the questions they were asking 2,000 years ago. But if you look at the religious issues, they're fighting today about the same stuff they've been fighting about for 2,000. They're just spinning the same wheels. They're not getting anywhere. It's worse than philosophy, which also is debating the same issues for thousands of years, not getting anywhere because it's all abstract and semantic.
and I'll say in defense of philosophy, it at
Go
least
ahead.
can make you think. It can at least get you some,
It's not as bad
but
as religion.
not as bad. But with religion, it doesn't. They use the not changing as kind of an argument for it.
That it had to be fundamentally true at some time, and
Because it is never altered, because it's once again so old, which I find another weird argument.
well, the thing is, from the Christian perspective, okay, so God creates Adam and Eve in the garden, and then people go out, and then so if you could show that there were religions out there before anything like proto-Judaism became practiced anywhere, that would completely undercut the Bible, because you would expect, if God was talking to Adam and Eve in the garden and Cain and Abel and all these people, that I guess at some point people branched off and they forgot about him. They do that a lot in the Old Testament. People just they forget about him, even though he does magic and he kills people and he does all this stuff. He has to keep introducing himself again to new prophets and patriarchs.
But there's only two prophets that we could honestly say did exist. Well, you would even say hashtag you Oz. Maybe I'm lately go back and forth.
Oh,
Jesus
yeah.
and Muhammad. But when all of the other religions, if you think Moses and Noah and Adam and Eve were real people, you're wrong. I don't know what to tell you.
That's objectively wrong.
Yes, is factually they did not exist. And if your religion hinges on that, then your religion is factually wrong. We have actually falsified your religion. So, whew, hard day's work.
Right, X-Music. Yeah, there are lots of religions that predate Christianity, Proto-Judaism, and that's one reason we know that it's not true, because of there were traditions in place long before that arose. So it undercuts the whole idea of God talking to people at the dawn of humanity, because there was no evidence of Judaism or anything resembling Judaism until maybe 1000 BC, and that's pretty early.
Just want to say, I saw this Pine Creek wearing this, and I have this as a shirt too. But yeah, I have to bring up my hashtag, which is just prophets don't exist. I really dislike this apologetic I've gotten recently is that they're teachers. You got to have someone to teach you, right? It's like,
no,
seems a little weird that God needs teachers once again, but
not all that. Some recognize prophets, but most of them will say, no, there are no prophets today. All that ended 2,000 years ago. We don't need them today. Yeah, right. In the past, it ended in the past, and of course, don't worry, Amy, because the Bible says that you know that a prophet is true if what he says comes true, and otherwise you execute him, because then they're not a true prophet. But I don't think anybody who made more than a few prophecies ever really passed that test for a long time. There are lots of things in the Bible, prophecies, that never came to pass, or
well,
maybe
and that
only
is
vaguely so.
the other thing, Revelation prophecy. two bad methods. I'll try to accept those methods from people who are claiming it if you could actually prove any of those things. But the revelation, I don't understand how a God can just reveal things to you and no one else. I think that's kind of silly that he is just being like, boop, but not you, but not you, boop, but not you, but not you, boop. And all the people I didn't boop, they burning.
They better believe one of the people I did boop, or they're in trouble. And how will they know? They just better know. Oh well.
And then prophecy, which they're always bad. Just always trying to predict the future in the most vague terms possible, which is something that science can do. Is you can actually use science to predict the future. That is the great thing about science.
And then there are fake prophecies in the Bible. This is where they take an event that's already happened and then they go back and they write a prophecy after the fact and insert it in there. Look, they prophet. Yeah, right.
Oh, yeah. Well, you just got to make the round peg fit that square hole. And then once you shove it through there, it's fine. James, I don't understand what you don't get. The prophecy said there would be many wars and a nation would fall. I mean, there you go. I mean, what's there to argue about?
Rumors of wars and earthquakes in diverse places.
James, rumors of war happening right now. In fact, if you check the news, it's insert bleep, 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 bleep in your time period, and that war is happening right now. Did you actually know bleep and bleep are actually about to go to war? It's crazy.
And that's why Christians throughout all time have always thought they were in the last days. They've always thought that. They've always been wrong. Yeah, they've always thought it. They've always been wrong. None of it ever happens.
And that brings me to the other word, actually. They hate this word, but I view Christianity very cult-like. Like, it is a doomsday cult, blood sacrifice. They hate this. It has been this is why it's so strange to them, in my opinion, is that it was so successful. It's been watered down by the leaders because they don't have control so much that people are just like, no, this is just normal. We're just going about our day. I'm just eating a Swanson TV dinner. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not brainwashed with this little thing around my neck, this little torture device hanging around my neck.
Well, yeah, when it went mainstream, when it went from just a small sect of Judaism and it evolved into a major religion, and then when Rome made it the state religion, it had to shift from a doomsday apocalyptic cult into essentially a religion, a governing system. If you know the Holy Roman Empire and the papacy controlled politics of Europe for hundreds of years, they were basically running the show there.
Exactly. It has become the religion that we know today, almost through natural selection. It had to become that because they've got dominance. And then the other thing is, as controversial as you will say, doesn't matter. My favorite Joe Rogan joke. The difference between a cult and a religion is that in a cult, that guy knows he's full of shit, and in a religion, that guy's dead. Does seem to ring true. And so we are going to do a few more points. I want to bring up a comment by Randolf.
Okay, go ahead.
And we're going to soon go into the open mic, though. That's right. Randolph says, you know she's getting serious. You can always tell because this is when she brings out the big baseball bat of kindness. That's right. This is the complaint department of kindness
Our
right here.
mafia boss bat. But you have to realize that that the Old Testament, the New Testament, that these were written in a time when there were politics going on, just like there are politics today. And these authors were, in many cases, I think, trying to influence political views and societal norms of the time, and they chose to do that through writing. And apparently, in a long-term sense, they were successful.
Just another reason. Once again, writing. I love writing. I'm a big fan of written textbooks that you can actually open, as much as I love Kindles and all that. Nonetheless, it says something in a book, not a valid reason for believing in something. And as Ricky Gervais points out, it is not the science textbook, okay? Science textbook is just a recording of the facts. You could burn every scientific textbook right now. Our hearts would sink, and slowly but surely,
And Hoban would
year by year,
be smiling.
Yeah, he'd be dancing on the ashes. Year by year, we would rediscover every one of those facts, those exact facts, and we would put them back into new scientific textbooks. And that's the difference between science and religion.
Oh, that's like the time when Joseph Smith had supposedly translated one text, and then they took the translation. They said, okay, translate that same plate again, and we'll see if you come up with the exact same thing again. And he's like, oh, the angel took the plates. I can't translate them again.
That is like the textbook version of the religious con artist. You could not get a better example of the dude pulling it from his butt.
I can't translate the plates again. The angel Moroni took them. Darn it. Damn it.
It's those damn angels. Woohoo!
But the thing we have to realize is that, back when these texts were written, people believed in all sorts of crazy things. You could write crazy things down in books and text, and people would believe it because there was a lot of superstition back. People believed a lot of crazy things. You would kind of not get away with that as much today, writing about miracles, because people's standard of evidence is much higher. You said somebody was flying through the street, Amy. I look outside and they're flying. You would expect a picture, a video of some kind. You would expect some kind of evidence, not just, look, it says it on a piece of paper, therefore it's true. People didn't have that back then.
They'll just say, oh, well, you could fake that. You could CGI that. Okay, you could say that with anything. Just produce something. That is the difference, once again, between us and flat earthers.
Right. And that's one time, One time there was a flat earther who asked Neil deGrasse Tyson. He was talking with a flat earther, and he's like, okay, what about the pictures from outer space of the Earth? And he's like, I don't know, maybe they're CGI. And Neil, he's just like, okay, all right, thanks, but you're just not ready. We're not really going to go anywhere with this. Come back when you're ready to have an honest dialogue, because if you're just going to say CGI, you could do that for anything.
And they don't even produce CGI. Like, that is what annoys me. We could sit there, once again, with like the NASA cam and produce the ISS live feed. Right. We cannot produce this. I wish a god would be as physical as this pen. Like, if they're God, which is what they claim it's both. They claim it's both physical and then beyond physical. They don't like to say non-natural because that sounds weird. So they say supernatural. They have to create all these PR terms. Exactly. It's not physical, it's metaphysical. But they also claim it's physical, Because if this God isn't physical at all, there's nothing there, then what are we dealing with? There's nothing to detect. You got nothing to work with. Mm-hmm. And if you just joined us, we are Skeptic and Ranting on Does God Exist? We're going to go for like 5 more minutes or a few more minutes, and then we're really going to be jumping into the open mic because we want to hear what you have to say, atheist, theist, or otherwise. I'll just say once again, the consciousness claim always sounds a little out there because I'm very interested of the front. I'm not going to lie, it's the frontier of science. This is where we are putting in our efforts to try and understand consciousness better. Nonetheless, I feel that I feel there is no respect taken from it to the other side, or not always. Like, I feel like they throw the word consciousness around like after a lovely night and you're just dragging your jeans back behind your waist. I feel like they could treat her a little bit better because it's a consciousness that doesn't need to exist as far as I can tell, except it actually has one reason, a single reason. And this, I meant to bring this up in my opening statement, which is a deity seems to be contingent on us, as in a deity, if it's just mental, if it really is just coming from agents, then it's then they need us more than we need them.
Well, it's like I said, the gaps in our knowledge that they have to hide their God in are shrinking, so they have to go gear and look for things that are difficult to understand, things that are not black and white. And consciousness is just one of those things that is a little mysterious to us because it's how it arises is not perfectly understood right now. What the exact mechanisms of it, even though we are learning more and more all the time about it, there's just enough of a gap there in our knowledge for them to try to hide their God in and say that that's where one of the ways that he is.
I agree with you, just with the asterisk that all of the current evidence points to a natural.
Absolutely. Like with everything, like people who have traumatic brain injuries, their personalities, their thoughts are permanently changed by those injuries. It's not as if the theist model were right, it's like the consciousness is somewhere else and it should be impervious to damage to the physical because the soul is somewhere else, maybe? Or
I don't know where the soul gets put in. But that is also, I really look at consciousness from as cold of a biological mechanism as I have. It may be, I'm very biased. I say this maybe every other podcast, but I have temporal lobe epilepsy. And so my definition, very clear cut, I lose consciousness. That's what they tell me. That is what the doctors tell me. And so whatever I'm losing, that is consciousness. And so when they try and go away from that definition, I don't even know what they're talking about. Like, because that's all I care about is trying to understand the light that is going on and what happens when that light goes off.
And one area for you to look into that, you ever been under anesthesia before?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, that's what that does to interfere with consciousness. And from what I've heard is it doesn't inhibit the brain cells it inhibits parts of the brain from communicating with other parts of the brain. So they're communicating inside their own region, but they're not communicating globally over the whole. That's just what
No,
I've
that makes,
read.
because it's separated into lobes. Basically, they're
Right,
turning off things, but it's not. They're
right.
not able to communicate to each other
They're communicating amongst themselves, but not with each
locally,
other.
but not
Yeah,
globally.
yeah. So
Uh,
this
that
next
makes
part of the
complete
brain,
sense. The
yeah,
way that my seizures work is that it starts in the temporal region, and that is why my onset is the feelings of deja vu, because it messes with my memory. But you don't
right.
pass out until the seizure goes global, until it actually goes and affects the entire brain. And that's called a generalized seizure. Uh, and
Yeah,
and all this stuff, we're talking about biology. And you know what? As scary and freaky as it may sound, and as serious as it, I like it sometimes to put a more serious emphasis on the subject, because I don't feel that they take the subject seriously. I feel like
not
they
at
throw
all.
the word around. That I want to know why this God exists and is a conscious mind. A conscious mind that we could put theoretically under anesthesia? I mean, that's what we're talking about. Can the mind go off? Because I don't understand. Then it's like the forever mind running. Oh my lordy! It just seems almost torturous.
What is that? They I think I saw something once. They were thinking about, like, if you just took somebody's brain and uploaded it into a computer, would consciousness return? Would there be consciousness of some kind on a computer hard drive? I don't know.
I I would be very interested to know if we could have artificial conscious on like a system like that. I think that what's going to end up happening, instead of like on a hard drive, I think we're going to end up making artificial life. And so it's going to be squishy silica.
Right.
It's going to be like a silicone squish. And then from that, we will eventually get up to more multicellular, because the computers that we think of right now are very fragile. We stereotype them and think that they're these supercomputers, but they're actually very delicate machines that need to be very pressure
Right.
sensitive, that we need to take care of and replace and blah 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 blah. And so
They wear
us
out.
being alive benefits us being conscious, which it seems like that would be an obvious statement. But if we examine that for a little bit, we get to be conscious while the little machines on the micro level are actually doing a lot of shit, actually getting things done, taking care,
Our
healing
our
us and
our
repairing.
cells are not, and they're not conscious. Our cells are not individually conscious.
Exactly.
They're autonomous robots. They're
Well, they seem to, they are they are little living cells that are living out their little lives, and whatever their job is seems to help us on the macro scale. So I don't know if a neuron knows that it's a neuron.
Does a white blood cell know that
I don't know exactly.
it's
Well,
eating, that it's killing these bacteria to keep the body safe, because we would like
I
not to
don't
be
know,
infected with bacteria?
but I would say that it benefits us greatly that we have this microscopic landscape as a conscious organism, because without it we would just fall apart and we would not be
Yeah.
conscious for very long. Once again, is God made, to take it back to the subject, is God made of something like this fractal, to where it is a smaller thing, or is it just this blob, the God blob?
The thing is, we don't know, because they will never postulate or put anything, because they have no clue what he is, where he came from, if he came from anywhere, what his properties are. He just is. They don't have any answers.
Just
So
is.
therefore, it can be anything you want, Amy. It can be anything. He can be anywhere. He can be anything. But the thing is that even consciousness is something that's mysterious to us, something we don't fully understand. Though, as we learn more about it and as we look under the hood, like as we look inside the cell, we're seeing natural processes. We're seeing naturalism. We're not seeing anything
100%.
magic. We're not seeing any deviation from physics and chemistry. That's all we see. So why would we conclude then that it had to have magic to get it started? That's just a silly conclusion because it doesn't require magic to operate. So it didn't require magic to start operating.
But James, aren't you saying something came from nothing? Aren't you saying that there was just a rock and
No.
then there was life?
Yeah. Yeah.
No,
We
we're
don't
not.
know.
No, we are saying that we don't know where things came
The universe
from.
came from.
There is something. There isn't a nothing. That is what we know.
The fact that
And
minerals are in rocks and minerals are in life is not the same thing as saying life comes from rocks. That's a silly statement. Like you wouldn't say you're eating rocks if you're eating iron. That's kind of a silly thing to say. But it's claims like that are made for not to be a serious argument. They're just made to straw man, just to make atheism and evolution sound stupid, which is really what they're trying to do. But they fail. But we can easily make religious claims sound stupid because a lot of them are really stupid. And that's not the same as saying that theists are stupid, because a lot of them are not. It's
just the
saying that
apologetics.
theism is
Theism.
stupid. Not all theists are stupid. Amy's cat overlord is hearkening to
I know,
man.
he wants to go in, he wants to go scratch, and then he went away. But I think
another Nick Suter account. How many sock accounts does Nick Suter have?
Well, how many $400 jackets can one wear? I feel bad. He's like, I am never gonna live, but we're sending so much love, Nick. In fact, I just appreciate a fancy looking gentleman. That's all I'm gonna put out there. But we are sending so much love. We are skeptic and ranting. I think I am going to send the link into chat so we can start to get people keyed up for the open mic. We are skeptic and ranting.
Cue 'em up, baby.
Does a God exist?
$400 socks. Yeah. That's a new one for me.
I remember when hearing the sentence, how much or how good does a $5 milkshake taste? I can't even say it, was like a relevant thing. And I was like, damn, God, it better be good for $5 for a whole milkshake. So now I am getting
people
old.
pay
That's what I'm trying
$8,
to say.
$8 or $9 for a milkshake. And going up all the time. Inflation. Let's go, Brandon. No.
Hey, I'm not political, and I will say
we're
I
not
know
political.
I name checked someone before. I am not political in either direction. We're just sending love into the universe. In fact, it's kind of funny. When it comes to politics and religion, we just seem to pick. It's funny that religion seems to be so easy. I don't know why, but it actually seems to be a unifying force for me, not a divisive one.
Politics is harder because it's more subjective, whereas I think religion is much more objective. You can objectively, I think, say that these claims are not credible, they're not believable, they're not worthy of belief, whereas politics is more of a question of what do you think, what are your values, what do you want to do? It's a lot more subjective.
Morality and ethics,
right?
And dealing with
not black and white.
Should questions and things like that, which I always find weird coming from them because it's always they're like it's not subjective, and it's like let's take a little bit more of an examination into this, and it's like, well, it's objective because this dude went and wrote it down and said it was from their God.
Objective morality.
They took their subjective view, and then we're like, it's objective because my God says so. It's like, no.
And we've had it argued on our channel before that, hey, they don't know if it's true, they don't care if it's true, but they like what it says, so they're going to use that to impose their will on other people who don't have the same viewpoint as they do.
The Inquisition. Let's begin. The Inquisition. Goodbye, sin.
Commander Girl Dick level.
That's right. Look, it's either the book or the sword. And they
at the sword bearer level.
That's right. They like to put up the book, but the book is really not that great, and the history is lined with lots of bodies from the sword.
Get ready for the No True Scotsman. But Amy, they weren't real Christians. Those were the fake Christians that did that. They weren't real Christians.
Same ones who own people as property. Those weren't real Christians, even though they're quoting the Bible.
They weren't real Christians, even though they were quoting the Bible verses that say you can own other people. And but yeah, they were not real Christians, no. And that's not a No True Scotsman fallacy.
It's not because they don't like syrup on their pancakes. And with that...
And that's a special pleading, Amy. Come on.
I have had someone, I think it was a role player,
it was him,
told me that it wasn't special pleading. It was just God was special.
Because you can't... Because the universe have to have a beginning, it have to have a creator, but no, God does not have to have a beginning or a creator. You cannot ask that for God, and that is not a special pleading. Well, you're making a special rule for God that says he doesn't have to have an explanation, but the universe does. But the universe does, but God doesn't. Go in circles with that. Oh, circular reasoning. That's the preacher. That's his famous fallacy.
James, what's wrong with circular reasoning?
Yeah.
How do you know you're not a brain of that? How do you know you weren't here 15 seconds ago?
Hume's problem of induction, Amy. How do we know anything?
Exactly. And all right, with that, we are going to open up to the open mic so that we can eventually get to more open discussion. We got Randolph and Nick backstage.
Oh boy.
We are going into the open mic. Sup, Randolph? How are you?
Oh, I think what's wrong with circular reasoning is it's really hard to triangulate its points.
That's true. We're trying to find, gotta find that corner in that circle. Nonetheless,
Dawkins when we need him.
I hope you're doing well, Randolph. And we are Skeptic and Ranting on Does God Exist?
Yeah, I think which male deity we're talking about is an important question in attempting to answer this question. For the vast majority of them, I have no idea if deities exist. I don't hold any beliefs on them, but when I take a look at, say, the God of Christianity, and I see this paradox of omniscience and omnipotence, that kind of leads me to really have serious doubts about it, about the claims, and so of course that's an issue that has to get resolved if we're going to have an answer to that anytime soon. And sorry about that. The other thing was I was thinking earlier in this video in the chat, and I put out a comment as well, that I was thinking that a really good slogan for you would be a very simple and elegant one: just sending love.
Aw. Well, Randolph, I'm just sending you love.
No, I'm serious. It should be your slogan. I think it's very fitting for you, because you talk about that a lot, and it suits you so well. I really do think that.
He does send out a lot of love.
I like that. That and woohoo. I think I'm digging it.
Go for it. Yeah. Oh,
gonna go for it.
XC Music had noted earlier in the chat as well that almost an hour ago now, that when they joined, bad news, guys. Just heard on CNN that God just died from complications due to COVID-19. Last 4 days on a ventilator with Jesus and Holy Spirit at bedside. He gave his last breath. So I'm thinking, we all
didn't
know
get the vaccine.
Yeah, this is hilarious, but I think we all know what really happened. Mother Teresa was his nurse.
Womp womp. Yeah. Just wanted to see him suffer a little more to make sure God would get to heaven.
She was sadistic and not into consent. So there's major issues there, I'd say. But
which is why she was kicked out of every BDSM club that she went to.
Yeah, I think I want to not take up too much time here because I know Nick has to. He has a bedtime coming up soon, so we should probably let him get the floor for a bit.
Does he have his suit on?
You'll have to ask him. I don't know the answer to that. I'll leave that to him.
Come on, Randolph.
I think that's only fair.
And I do want to send love also to our Twitch viewers out there. What is up, Blowers viewers? As well as everybody out there in the chatosphere. And thank you so very much, Randolph.
Thank you.
Nick, what is up?
Hey, Nick, he's got it. He's got it.
You cannot say that he does not aim to please. I will say.
No, that's true. Well, you know, if I'm going to be trolled, at least just by James, I'll you know, me, my $400 suit and my socks at $200 a piece, all are good. Yeah, well, thank you, Randolph. Yeah, I'm probably actually only stay on for about 5 minutes, and so, but I wasn't even gonna. I was just like, no, I really shouldn't come in. And then it's just like, it's too much fun. How am I going to stay out of it? So I was just like, oh, I should already be in bed. It's like, nope. I'm going to go in. I can't resist the opportunity to give James a hard time. It's just, you know, it's not fair. It's just...
All right, let's talk about Hume.
Someone has to do it.
I don't want to talk about Hume. There's one thing I want to talk about. So there's an argument I came up with, and I'm fixing all the cables in my office, so you're going to have to put up with that. All right, so here's my thing with God. We all know what a gaps argument is. God of the gaps argument. It's basically like, well, I don't know what did it, so it's God. My favorite example of this is 2,000 years ago, better. You know, we're standing at a beach. Somebody comes up to me, says, I can prove God exists. I say, okay, how are you going to do that? I said, well, do you agree that everything that moves has to have something acting on it? You know, if that stone's going to come down the hill, something acting on it. I say, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So, okay, what's acting on the ocean? You know, tides coming in, tides going out. What's causing that? And I say, well, gee, I don't know. So, aha, it's God. Literally the hand of God under the ocean, pushing it in, pulling it out. There you go, I just proved God. I was like, well, you know, I don't know what it is, but that doesn't mean your guess is right. I mean, it could be aliens, it could be, just because I don't know doesn't mean you're right. Well, what do you think it is? Well, I don't know, but my ignorance doesn't mean that you're right, or your ignorance of an alternative doesn't mean that you're right. Well, gee, Nick, is there any force on the planet that could move the oceans? And I could sit there and say, no, I'd be completely correct, but it still wasn't God, as it turns out, you know, big shock. The interesting thing about a God of the gaps argument is it is the most employed argument in human history, in human discourse, since human beings have learned to talk. We made a lot of arguments about a lot of things, and certainly Hume made a lot of great arguments, but the single most employed argument in human history is a God of the gaps argument, that we don't know X, Y, Z, ergo it was God specific. I mean, just sort of the argument from ignorance, or that kind of fallacy is obviously extraordinarily common too. But the single most commonly employed argument is God of the gaps. It has never once been demonstrated to be correct, not once. So I make two propositions, real simple. First, God of the gaps is the single most failed argument in human history. We've never actually really proven it wrong. That's a fallacy of knowledge in Hume and all these other great things. But it's the most failed argument in history that we do know. And two, I have never seen a religious argument that if you don't apply a proper formal reducto to it, does not resolve to a God of the gaps argument. Ergo, every argument for the existence of God that I've seen is one of the most refuted arguments, if not the single most refuted argument in human history. That's my argument.
It does
Thank
all
you
boil
so
down
very
to
much, Nick.
eventually you will get to a gap in human knowledge, and there will be that assertion, you don't know, therefore God.
Well, and that gets into Agrippa's trilemma, or the what's it called? Oh God, it's Agrippa's trilemma, or the other name for it, I've forgotten. But basically, all knowledge will eventually, if you apply a reducto, reduce to one of three things, and you can actually choose depending on how you choose to do it. But it's going to have to be one of three: infinite regress, brute fact, or circular reasoning. You're going to get stuck with one, and what happens is the infinite regress of the problem of history and time and the universe needed a beginning, but what started that? What started that? What started that? Theists don't like that, and that's fine. I agree. I don't like that. I mean, it's not, doesn't make any sense, right? But so what do they replace it with? Well, a brute fact. Well, there must therefore be. Well, that's a brute fact. And if you'd like, I can replace it with circular reasoning. I can choose which one I land on, but all you're doing is replacing our ignorance of how to solve that infinite regress, which is an infinite regress. I agree.
But what is your ultimate foundation?
Yeah, there's and there isn't any brute fact that they can apply to God that I can't apply to another universe that was conscious. And they think they try to get cutesy around it because consciousness bias, it has to have been a consciousness. Why? Brute fact. That's simple. So there you go. Randolph, how you doing?
Oh.
Been too long.
Doing really good. How are you?
My favorite kind of conversation is with a person where the other party is muted. Thank you, Randolph. That was awfully considerate of you. Well.
Oh yeah, no, I mute because sometimes echoes start to happen, and if I know I'm not going to be talking for a while, I'll turn on the mute button. So yeah, that's exactly
Do you know what
right.
causes these echoes?
You must have liked to go on John Maddox's channel.
I do.
Could it be God?
It is the microphone built into my laptop.
I think it's God. Prove me wrong.
You're
It
trying
seems
to
to be their
unchain the
methodology.
burden of proof onto me. Okay. First
Well,
justify that.
listen, I'm just, this is the
He's
game,
doing a
right?
burden
We've all been on that side of it, Randolph. You know exactly what I'm doing. How many times has someone done this to you?
Oh, I lost count. Mind you, I wasn't counting from the beginning, to be fair, but there's no point in counting. It happens so much.
Yeah. Oh, Jesus. I know.
Speaking of that, I'm going to be on a panel again on another live stream on Sunday morning again, same time as almost a fortnight ago, with people who were going to be all together trying to answer the question, convince us a God exists or a goddess exists. And last time, a lot of interesting things came up, but nothing convincing. And one guy even talked about how humans have worms, parasitic worms, that control their minds.
Oh.
That was...
I never thought of that.
I've actually heard that one.
That was different. Yeah. That one stood out. So...
Yeah, there's some actual theory now that some memories are stored in the gut and there go, and maybe it's.
I think I heard something about this on BBC Radio, our government radio station. They have a lot of science research on it too, and they're talking about how there's some emotions and thoughts are stored in the heart and maybe other parts of the body. So perhaps what you've heard is more advanced research, and they've gotten all the way to the stomach now. I don't know.
Oh, please.
No, go ahead. I was just going to point out, do you remember last stream we had a miracle on our stream? Don't you remember, Amy, when Wesley healed one of Big Scream Bird's teeth? And he said he would heal it so that he would know that God was real?
Well, there's a test. We
need
to get Big Scream Bird back. The vegetarian bird, excuse me.
But he said that Big Scream Bird would lie about it. He would deny that one of his teeth was spontaneously healed and that his toothache, I guess, was coming back because,
Why would you lie, though? See, that's always like, oh my God, the thing that ailing me was suddenly healed. I need to hide this so I can stay.
Well, if I'm hearing this right, it wasn't an amputation that was healed.
No, it definitely
No, it
wasn't
was
www.godheals.
a
Why
bad
won't
tooth. Yeah.
godhealsamputees.com?
Oh, that's funny.
I witnessed a miracle. I went onto a stream once about 10 minutes ago with Amy Newman, and there's a guy there named Randolf who said the words, well, and then this came up, and she didn't make sexual innuendo. I think that's the ball game.
Oh my!
You
Wow.
cut out the earlier part. I'm
This is the
serious.
opportunity like that.
Yeah.
It's true.
over.
That must have been a
It
miracle.
was a really dumb, stupid joke. It was a dumb, stupid joke. Randolph, consider yourself lucky you didn't hear it. I'm gonna bail, but so Randolph, you got the panel coming up. What do you got? What are you guys doing?
What
When are we
channel?
getting back to the Bible studies? What? I'm so glad. I learned so much when
From our Bible studies.
with Jimmy. It's just it's a lot of fun. Thank you. I feel smarter.
And I will say,
No, I don't.
we are going to be hopefully having more debates coming up. We are getting them scheduled. We will definitely be having another Bible study because we want to finish out Numbers. It turns out the Bible, holy moly, is it big? And then
yeah.
I wanted to see if modern day debate, if they're really going to do. Let me see. How much of the TOS gods can I? How should I word this?
You're right about how big it is.
I guess they retitled it "Should Ex-Muslims Be Punished?" That's what it is, nicely worded right now. And we'll say that I'm a little biased on that one, aren't we all? But I mean, if it happens, I would like to have
I'm still doubting it will actually happen, but we'll see.
I can't believe. I mean, the
Someone
world
would
is so
go
big.
and make that argument.
It just seems like it's one of those statements where, like, you're not supposed to say that out loud. Like, I clearly people believe that. I mean, there are countries that believe that, but it's like you're not supposed to say that out loud. You're supposed to be like, they're not hanging. This is our arts and crafts section, or they're doing a works project out there. They'll be fine.
That's funny. But there was years ago, Sam Harris was talking about a Pew Research study. It was quite a significant one. They all around the world. I'm still trying to find a link to this because I would like to look at it again. If anybody knows, please send it to me. I'm having trouble finding it.
I should have the PDF of it, so remind me and I'll send it to you.
Oh yes, please send that to me. That'd be great because I want to send it to James.
I know exactly what you're talking
in the video description for everybody. But it was saying 65% of the Muslims interviewed or surveyed were in favor of death being the punishment for apostasy. And I brought this up in a debate with Nadir Ahmed, the first Muslim I've ever formally debated, and that was in December 2021 on Modern Day Debate. It went very interestingly, and I learned a lot, and as I always hope to with these debates. And there was one part where he was trying to dispute this, and then at one point he said, "Oh yeah, that's normal." And I was thinking, what my wife said I should have done is asked him if he approves of that being normal. And yeah, I missed that point. It would have been a great follow-up question, I think. So it would be a very good one to ask.
I'm going to say this, then we're going to get Leophilius in here. But there are, like you were saying, a dozen countries where if you apostatize, leave the religion, our last episode, you will die. You will be against
punishable by death.
Blasphemy laws. You will be sentenced to death. That is, I think that warrants the word crazy. Can we say that?
It is crazy, insane.
And okay, we're going to
say hi in person, Leo. But I'm going to bail. Good to see all of you. Good to see Randolph.
Good night,
by the way, Randolph, your numbers are about right. But the other thing was, remember that in 5 countries, the Muslim countries, they were so extreme they wouldn't actually let the survey be taken. So the numbers are probably worse.
Really?
Hit me up. It's the Pew. I know exactly the one, and it was a
thank you.
So thank you guys. Have a great evening, and I'll catch up with you later.
Sending love, Nick. We're about to add Leophilius. It reminds me of when they do a survey of some religious fundamentalist countries, and they're like, what are the percentage of LGBTQ that you have in there? They're like 0. Gays don't exist in our country. They don't exist at all. Not at all. Why? Do you know what? Do you know what? Huh? You want to take a survey? Huh?
But even then, they
Anyway.
found, even in countries like Saudi Arabia, they found that there was a gay community bustling under the surface.
Oh, of course.
Which,
And in Saudi Arabia, where I'm sure atheism is not looked upon friendly, the God Delusion is one of the #1 pirated books. And so with that, we're going to lead into Leophilius. We are Skeptic and Ranting on Does God Exist? We're going after just deism in general, along with all that theological baggage. Hope you're doing well, Leo. Does God exist?
Well, first things first, The God Delusion is not a good book. It's more Richard Dawkins kind of whining about how he doesn't like theism, but it's everywhere. It's not a good book. Does God exist? No. And this is one of the reasons why I was rather disappointed with AP's performance in that debate. I was actually, I can't remember the guy's name, whatever his screen name was, but I actually thought he did well in that debate. He actually presented arguments, he defended them, and he called out AP on his inability to properly address them. Now, this isn't me saying that these are good arguments or that I believe these arguments or that I even think that they're sound. I just think that his defense of them was better than AP's. Not really an attack on them. So a lot of people claim that I just go after atheists to be edgy. I don't. There's
Never heard that, actually.
I wouldn't say most, but there are many atheists, particularly online atheists with relatively large platforms, that I don't think give the best performances in debates. I don't think they do the best job addressing some of the arguments. And it's disappointing because arguments like the contingency argument, the Kalam cosmological argument, the fine-tuning argument, like the young man in that debate he presented, these arguments aren't all that hard to overcome. You just have to do it the right way. The approach I would have taken in such a debate to defend my answer no to the question God doesn't exist or does God exist is number one, since the young man was, I believe, a Muslim, I would have presented against theism, classical theism, which includes Islam. I would have presented the divine hiddenness argument, the meager moral fruits argument, and the argument from evil. And then I would have argued after that in favor of I would have defended 3 contentions that I think add to the fact that theism is false. I would have defended, firstly, the contention that the theoretical virtues of naturalism are higher than theism, that naturalism is more theoretically virtuous than theism. This is an argument that Graham Oppie defends, because I would have been defending not just atheism, but naturalism. I would have then argued something along the lines of Paul Draper's argument that he presents more of a Bayesian probabilistic argument that naturalism is more probable than theism. And then lastly, I would have presented or defended the contention that naturalism is more coherent than theism. And I think that together this makes a very strong cumulative case against theism. Specifically classical theism, but also theism broadly.
I agree in that, especially naturalism being the counter view to their theological worldview, because atheism doesn't bring anything to the table, but with methodological naturalism, we can start to...
Well, I would have defended naturalism.
I'll say, that's true.
I did want to add on to what you said.
With naturalism, we can start to understand the physical world.
But to add on to what you said, there's a reason that the greatest defenders of atheism, Graham Oppie, Paul Draper, Schellenberg, Mackey's another good one. They weren't just atheists; they were naturalists. All the best defenders of atheism have been naturalists and have defended naturalism. Sean Carroll is also a naturalist and defends naturalism. And you'll notice that, and we can even see this in the 2020 Phil survey that was just released last year, most philosophers are atheists, but more than that, and atheism was specifically defined for that poll as belief that God does not exist. But it also showed that most philosophers are naturalists as well.
I'm curious if you could talk a little bit about what a naturalist is, because I've heard different ideas on it, and I'm curious what angle you're working on this, because I think that would be helpful to understand the people you're talking about.
Yeah, so the first thing is that you'll often hear the term methodological naturalism. Understand this isn't a philosophical position, a metaphysical position, or an ideal. It's literally just fanciful jargon for science. It's the methodologies we use for understanding the natural world. So methodological naturalism is not a philosophical or metaphysical position. Naturalism, or what most people mean by just naturalism, which is metaphysical or philosophical naturalism, is the belief that the natural world is all that exists. It is the worldview that all which exists is just the natural world. The way I like to word it is that extant reality, all which exists, is exhausted by natural reality, all which is natural. Or in other terms, all which exists is natural, and all that is natural is that which exists. And the natural, in this sense, should be in reference to the natural physical world, that and everything that is extended within it and contained within it is all which exists.
I think it also encompasses the idea that science can't deal with supernatural claims. So, from a scientific standpoint, they look for natural explanation because anybody can throw out.
A naturalist would just subsume that by saying supernatural things don't exist. Of course, science can't study them. Science doesn't study things that don't exist. And that's the position I take. That any sort of paranatural or extra-natural view that involves going beyond the natural realm in a more of a metaphysical or an ontological sense is really it's just our conceptualizing and using our imagination. These aren't things that actually exist.
Sure don't have any reason to think so.
Exactly. I also think that when we look at things like comparative religions, and we look at the history of religions and religiosity in humans and how it has evolved and developed, I think it seems pretty obvious that gods are ideas invented by humans.
Perhaps humans using a lot of mushrooms in many cases too.
It could be. And there's even some research out there that shows that humans haven't, because of particular evolutionary traits that we've developed to help us survive, religiosity is something that's almost like sort of inevitable in humans. Some people use this as an argument like in favor of religion. Oh, well, why are humans evolutionarily driven to believe in God if, God didn't actually exist? Well, we can explain why.
Some people will say the mind is hardwired for religion. We hear that a lot. The mind is hardwired for religion. Like it's pre-programmed.
I don't fully agree with this. No. I don't think it is. No. I look at the Praha people in the Amazon as an example that is counter to that. Most of this kind of religious stuff I see is kind of influenced by culture that was built by a lot of people who are religious in our past, and that the religions took on very well. And it even flows into current people who are popular, like unfortunately Dr. Jordan B. Peterson, who makes claims like
Peterson.
Yeah, ridiculous claims like he said that there's atheists are all Christians, but we just don't know it. And then Matt Dillahunty followed up very, very good question. He said, "What to Mr. Peterson would a true atheist be like?" And then Peterson responded, "They'd be like Raskolnikov in the."
Wait, who said this to him?
Jordan Peterson.
No, who said this to Jordan Peterson?
Oh, Matt Dillahunty asked him. Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, and it was so he was saying it's like Raskolnikov from the novel Crime and Punishment. Atheists would be out murdering everybody or murdering people constantly or something. So it's like these things I'd like to talk with Dr. Peterson about, and I've even proposed it to him a couple of times, but never got a response. I assume he's just busy because he's very popular and probably can't keep up with the huge volume
probably
of messages. But it is a subject I would like to broach with him, or I'd like to see anybody broach it with him. But
I would love to have a discussion with him, a debate with Kermit Peterson on naturalism versus theism would be great. I'm gonna do. I've got some.
You'd be really good at this. Yeah.
I've got some studying to do. And then I'm gonna try to get a hold of Michael Egnor and see if I can't set up a debate with him on.
My suggestion is if you actually do get to debate with him, read Crime and Punishment. Just
Why?
because he refers to it a lot.
I don't even know what that is.
It's a novel.
By?
I'm trying to remember who it was by. But if you look up Crime and Punishment, it'll come up.
Is this like a philosophical book or something? Or is this
Yeah,
like
he
a
refers a lot
novel?
to it. And the reason is, like, if I'm going to debate with him, I'm going to read that. They have it in audiobook form as well. And it's quite a well-written book.
I don't think, by Fyodor Dostoevsky, whatever the dude's name
But
is.
the reason
The few debates I watched with him, I
is,
didn't hear him mention or reference
no,
this
he
book.
refers to it a lot. He refers to it a lot.
Well, I watched like 2 or 3 of his debates.
Yeah.
I did not hear him in those debates mention this.
I'm just trying to give you some helpful suggestions here, because I think that way you'll be better prepared, because when he starts pulling rabbits out of his hat that refer to things in that novel, you'll be
I would just
right on
disregard
top of
them. I would just be like, I don't know what this has to do with our debate. This is
Leo's
crime
great.
and punishment. I don't know what does this have to do with
Leo's
naturalism.
classic. I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means.
I am going to
I'm
get
just trying to be
Mark
helpful, man.
Reed
Yeah, I
and
know.
Mubarak in. So we are going
What the
to
fuck is
Mark.
this book even supposed
add
to be
one
about?
in
that would be a good
at
thing
a
to
time.
check up on too.
Oh, okay, yeah, this is what
He
the
loves lobsters.
fuck would this have to do with it? Yeah, what? It would be like debating him on naturalism versus intelligent design, which is what I want to debate him on, and then he
Yeah.
starts citing from Pride and Prejudice. Like, what the fuck does this have
Well,
to
I
do?
You know what? It would
Crime
be
and
an
Punishment
awesome
does
debate
have-
if you're able to hit all his points and correct him on his
Yeah.
misunderstandings of his favorite book. Can you imagine that?
You could easily write a book where the killer is a religious person going around killing the people. It's
Yeah.
It's sort of,
So that's why he cites the book, because it follows what an atheist
yeah,
goes around killing
because
people.
because the atheist in it, that he works from a utilitarian viewpoint, that if he takes out his landlord, it will help everybody around him, kind of thing. So it's like this very purely utilitarian kind of, he's suffering by taking out this one person. And look, Crime and Punishment is a really good book. It is. It's one of the greatest books that's been written. But we've got to be careful not to apply these characters, sort of onto real people and sort of say, well, that's what an atheist would do. I have no idea why Jordan Peterson would take one character out of a book and sort of go, well, that's all atheist.
Wait, hold on. Randolph, when you were mentioning Crime and Punishment, were you talking in reference to Jordan Peterson or Michael Egner?
Peterson.
Oh, I thought
Peterson.
you were talking about Michael Egner, because he was the one that I just mentioned. So
I thought you were talking about Egner as somebody who'd be organizing the debate.
No. That's somebody who I want to debate.
That's okay.
I want to hassle Leo. I want to hassle Leo because Leo called me a name earlier, so I want to hassle him.
Okay.
Hassle him,
You're being called to the question now.
Once you are done hassling him, you have to then answer me. Does God exist?
So, Amy,
Well,
this is your
that's
call
what
a person to the
that's what
carpet section, right?
Well, who was the other person you were getting on? Should I wait for them? Maybe would be good to get a number of different. I don't know. I don't go so far.
Mubarak is back there.
We got Mubarak and Shane.
All
I don't
right.
subscribe to.
How about we get these people? How about we get these people in here? I'm ready for people to be here. I haven't been in a live stream in like a couple of weeks. I'm ready.
How about this? Mark puts his critique out, and then Leo has time to think about it before responding. While these other people come on.
That's actually oftentimes detrimental to me, because my mind works too fast, and then I'll forget what my responses are.
Mark, if you could remember what your point was, we're gonna go right.
ADHD is a hell of a drug.
I'm trying to help you here, Mark.
I got the opposite problem. I'm just so focused. I won't leave a topic ever. So trying to get me off a topic is like trying to. Yeah. All right.
I'm gonna get you onto a topic. Mark, does God exist?
I don't believe so, but I don't claim philosophical naturalism because I can't investigate these concepts, and there seems no way to investigate it. But I can't claim it doesn't exist, to know it doesn't exist, because I've got no way to investigate it. I don't know how you can possibly make a claim that something doesn't exist when you can't investigate it. And I'm just not talking about belief here. I'm not talking about a purely epistemological sort of belief claim. Like, hey, I've got no reason to I can't investigate this, I can't check it out, so therefore I don't believe it. But you're claiming to have knowledge of something that you can't investigate. And I guess that's what I was going to ask you about, because you sort of said, and that's what I find naturalism in its sort of the hard naturalism, that the supernatural definitely does not exist. We know it doesn't exist. I wonder how.
I'm with you, Mark. I have trouble with that claim.
I don't defend I don't defend a strong naturalism like that. I don't really know any leading naturalist from Sobol to Quine to Oppie that's ever defended this 100%. The supernatural does not exist. I'm fairly confident that it doesn't exist. But
fair enough. Okay.
If I were going to say I know that it doesn't exist, I would like sort of abuse the word no a little bit, and KNOW no, I would abuse the word no a little bit like Aaron Ra does and say that I know that supernatural things don't exist in the same sense that I know that Santa Claus doesn't exist.
Right, yeah.
But in that sense, no still isn't, in a more epistemologically rigorous sense, the proper word to use there. But yeah, I personally don't know, except for like maybe one person I know. Well, that's a naturalist. I know the supernatural does not exist.
Well, I still do adhere to empiricism. Like, I think that whether or not any kind of mystical or any kind of outside thing is, I still think there should be effects we can observe, right? So we can set up, like your Santa Claus example is perfect. We can set up chimney cams and find out if Santa Claus does actually exist or not, and get a reasonable level of confidence in that knowledge. But as far as God's concerned, there's all of the tests that we do. I mean, they basically go, well, science can't investigate God. Well, I think it should be put back on the people who are making the claim to say, well, you come up with some reliable method that we can get results out of.
Do you think?
Do I think what?
Do you?
I do think yes. I do think.
I was thinking yes would have been a good answer.
Yeah, you definitely do think that much. I do know. Or I can say I know that. But I was going to say, do you think that not just that we haven't yet been able to measure something, or detect it, or quantify it in some meaningful or rigorous manner, but that we can't do that, like it's claimed about God? You cannot understand the supernatural through science. Do you think that counts against its existence, or do you think that those chips evidentially sort of lean more towards naturalism being true than false, that supernatural things are just beyond our empirical reach altogether?
I think it leans more towards naturalism being true, but I will not say whether in the future we'll find some way, because I cannot know whether we'll find some way to evaluate through some methodology the supernatural. I mean, if you're using, what are the Scientology things, the Thetan measuring stuff,
or something like that.
Yeah. If you find you can make testable predictions with them somehow, and science doesn't understand it, but they keep getting things right again and again and again, you might say, hey, they've worked out don't get me wrong, I'm not saying this is happening. It's just hypothetically. Hypothetically, if they could do that, which they can't, but if they could, it may show that they have a way to detect and quantify the supernatural. But at present, we don't. We have squat.
That's
Yeah.
A lot of times atheists claim, there's nothing that would prove it to you, because even if Jesus came down to you, you would just think it was a hallucination, or you would think that it was you even wouldn't believe it, so there's nothing that would ever convince you.
There was somebody in the chat, Daryl Frost, had a comment. The first statement isn't true. The rest of it I think is a fair point. I don't know if he's pointing it out in support of naturalism or just as a general statement, but he said most people accept you cannot prove a negative. That's false. If I just said if P then not Q, P therefore not Q, I just proved a negative deductively, so you can prove negatives. The second part, though, that's the part that's interesting to me, and this is one of the big reasons why I'm a naturalist, and I'm going to try not to go on too long here because I believe there are people backstage, and I think we should get them in, but
In fact,
if we could, what's that?
Oh, in fact,
We'll get him in after you're done.
Make your point, and then when you're done your point, tell me, and we'll get Mobarak in.
Okay, sounds good. If we could measure, quantify, detect meaningfully, objectively supernatural things, would they be supernatural still? And if somebody says yes, then my question is, so is there anything that we have currently measured and verified in a physical, empirical manner that is also supernatural? Because if not, then the question is, it seems what separates the natural from the supernatural, and this is a pretty bold claim, is that the supernatural is effectively indifferentiable. Is that the word I'm looking for? You cannot differentiate supernatural, the set of things that are called supernatural, from the set of things which do not exist. Those, I would argue that those are identical sets.
Mm-hmm. And all
It's always
right.
worked out that way.
I will say, Daryl, feel free to join us along with anyone else. The link is pinned in chat. Doesn't matter if you are on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitch. But Mobarak,
He'll find you anywhere.
that's right, baby. Mobarak, how are you doing tonight? We are Skeptic and Ranting. Does God exist?
Hello, all. And
Hey, Mubarak.
What's up?
it's a difficult topic for me because when you say God, which God do you mean? That's the thing. I like to say when someone asks me, does God exist, is which one, because I will rather take them on an individual basis and question them there, rather than taking the whole topic as a supernatural, omnipresent, whatever exist, which might be a little bit different than, like, it's easier to tackle it that way with individual beliefs, especially with established religion. It's a little bit difficult or more complex to organize, to argue it or try to define it with a deist or a general theist with just believing in a deity or a god that just exists. For me, the biggest thing is, again, like, do we need a god? Why do we need a god? Could we be better with or without a god? So there is a lot of question in it. I don't believe that a god exists. All the claims that I have studied, read about, told about those gods, they don't seem appealing or even close to reality. So I don't believe that those
Doesn't
gods
pan out.
exist.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so very
Thanks,
much,
Mubarak.
Mubarak.
Mm-hmm.
And we really just want to send love to ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, ex-Mormons, and ex-Muslims, because when we are talking about does God exist, there are religions in general love their tribalism, but man, there are certain religions that just everything's peachy dory when you are in the in group, but as soon as you move to that out group.
Yeah, I wanted to also say something to Randolph about Paha people who don't have a concept of God. Their culture is very strange as well. They don't believe in kind of object permanence either. They only like sort of acknowledge things that they can see and observe, and when it goes from this, they're kind of I think they're a fascinating culture.
My understanding is that they do have some concepts of spirits to some degree, but there is no word for a deity in their language. No. So I'm talking about the concept of deity, and the spirits they believe in are not deity dependent. So they definitely still qualify as atheists. I know atheists who believe in spiritual realms and stuff like that, but don't believe in any deities.
Yeah, and maybe, I mean, we've heard it often before. I've heard it often before, sort of, that humanity has a God-shaped hole kind of thing that we'd like to put things in.
Amy does.
That's
Yeah,
a
I disagree
different
with
type of
I
hole.
think it's a ridiculous idea. I think it's like Christopher Hitchens said, that people are trying to force other people to play with their toys. It's wishful
Well,
thinking.
I think that I think that humans generally ascribe something not understood to some kind of power, and the more it has an impact on their lives, the more powerful a thing they want to ascribe it to.
A
So,
singular power?
well, it depends what it is. I mean, we started out with basic animism, right? Sort of spirits and the
Sure.
forces of the wind and trees and things that we didn't understand, and it sort of got more and more powerful to the pantheon, to the sort of monotheism, and then I mean the whole idea of the omni gods that Mobarak was talking about, that's very, very recent development in human history, incredibly recent. So
I agree.
I don't know. It's just my hypothesis that maybe the less power we feel, the more we want to, make something else power.
I'm not on board with it. It's to me, it doesn't make sense. Yeah, I grew up. I've been an atheist all my life. I've had no belief in these for a large part of my childhood. I didn't even have any concept of deities. It's just the way I grew up. But I don't see it. What it looks like to me, like you're mentioning the animism stuff, it seems like what we're doing is what humans always do, is we try to fill in the gaps of our understanding with what we think might be plausible explanations for whatever reason, even though they're completely wrong. Remember, there was a time when people thought, a lot of people believed that Earth was at the center of the solar system. It turned out not to be the case. And so there's all kinds of different mistakes we make in how we perceive reality and misperceive it. And I think just because religion is so popular, because there's so many people into it, it's very easy for people to fall into the trap and say, yeah, this is a natural thing for us to do. It's not necessarily the case.
Well, I think it's because people don't have control over stuff. Like, it's not only gods that have come up. You've also got astrology and water divining and all of these different things that I think, and my hypothesis is that when people lack power over things like, your earthquake that crumbles a house or a bushfire that goes through and destroys everything, you want to have some sort of control. So then, you make up something with the control, like a god. And well, if I pray to that God, I'll have that control over something that is completely out of my control. It makes you feel a lot safer to say, hey, if I kill a pig and dedicate it to, the God of the fires, maybe my house won't be burnt down, or I believe that my house won't be burnt down.
Yeah.
And maybe
Can I comment here really quickly?
Just a sec. What you're describing is very simply stated as superstition, I think. I'm not trying to miss anything here. I'm trying to agree with you. But I think superstition is the big category, not a deity. Deity is just a subset of the superstitious category in these kinds of circumstances, in my view.
And whoever wants to make the next point, tell me, and then we are going to add in Shane.
So I think Mark is definitely onto something here. I actually shared it. I didn't share it in the private chat here, but I did share it in the YouTube chat. An article I also shared one from NPR, but this is the article from Discover Magazine, and I'll share it again in here and in the YouTube chat, that talks about the fact that humans are in fact ingrained with this assigning agency to things in nature because it was an evolutionarily beneficial trait. That's why what Mark was saying is that it's not just gods; it's spirits and ghosts and astrology and anything that has some sort of agency, because our brains were designed to see that. Because R.N. Ross even mentioned this, if you see the trees or the leaves, the bushes blowing in the wind, sure, that could just be the wind, but that could also be a tiger. So you assign that agency there because that's what's going to get you to run up in the tree, because even if it's not a tiger, you'll still survive. But if it is a tiger, you're dead meat if you don't get up in that tree. So it's the same basic principle. Humans assign agency to things, and gods are just one of the most popular ideas that have taken off with respect to that.
Why gods and not goddesses? There's
goddesses are certainly a very, very prominent part of human history, yeah. And in fact, most religions' gods are genderless. The fact that they're referred to as a he or a she is usually just a cultural thing as the result of the fact that these religions were often developed by patriarchal societies. So naturally, they would. This is also why in like like Latin and Spanish languages, there's a lot of things that the base reference to it is masculine.
So
with the O.
the way I look at it is that's not my problem. If they actually meant it to be sexless or genderless, as some people like to call it, then the word deity would be used rather than God, rather than the
God is a genderless term.
No, it's the Father, Holy Ghost. You have goddess that's feminine and God that's masculine. That's
God can be understood just like the term actor can be a feminine term. These are not strictly masculine terms. God very much can be a feminine.
Then perhaps things are different here in Canada.
Well, I just the only reason that the gods in like Judaism, Christianity, Islam, those big three are seen as male is because of that the prominence of a patriarchal society in which those religions were developed. Like I said, this is the same reason why languages oftentimes the base reference to certain words. You see this a lot in Spanish because if you get verb conjugation and stuff like that. The base reference to the word is going to have what is considered the masculine suffix to it, suffix to it, not the feminine. That's because of the patriarchal societies in which they developed.
Yeah, and I've spoken with many Christians and Muslims and some Jews as well over the years who've decades, in fact, who are very insistent that God is the male figure. He is not feminine at all. And they're very, very clear about it. And some even hostile and angry about the idea of it even being brought up as a question.
And
that gets into the complications of God's gender, because gender is a form of expression that an agent can have, and that God may have that, and whether it's masculine or feminine. But that's getting in the weeds.
The thing is, I got to make one quick point. The etymology of God is from Germanic, and the Germanic term of, I think it was good, basically in Old Germanic, it was a neutral term.
Now, if the evangelical Christians were really understanding this as being gender or sex neutral, then there wouldn't be any of this anti-trans attitude coming from them.
What do you mean? Why?
Well, because they'd be seeing that their God is both masculine and feminine at the same time. The evangelicals I've spoken with are dead set against that. Their God is definitely male.
I don't think that has anything to do with their religion. I think that has to do with tradition.
Oh, yes, it does.
I don't think so. It's much more culturally nuanced than that. Like this idea that religion is what drives bad people to do bad is just no. Like religion is very much intertwined into culture, but there's many other cultural aspects that we have to consider when we look at a lot of, especially here in the United States, evangelicals and the way that they look at a lot of these social aspects. We've got to look at their political, their social views, and their religious views. And their religious views will tie into social and political views because they all tie together. And all of these concepts, amongst many others, are what develops a culture. It's the result of a very traditionalist culture, which often involves dogmatic thinking, religiosity, and conservatism. So, but it isn't, the religion is not like the one source of their sexism and misogyny. It's just that's a part of cultural issues. And because of the particular cultures that they're built within, religiosity is likely to also be higher as well.
I have to say here, it's in Arabic, there's two words. There's the name of Allah, the actual proper name of God, just like Elohim in Islam, and it's used in Islam, Christianity, and in Judaism. So all three refer to their God as Allah. But then you have the small g God, which is basically a deity, a god. It's exchangeable in Arabic, which comes to ilah, which is a different little bit a different word. But the fact is that, and especially in Islam here, God is a male, and you cannot say that he's not female. You cannot refer to God as a female. That's blasphemous, and like you cannot do that, even though the fact that
God is a female.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to blaspheme.
Yeah, I know.
You couldn't help yourself.
Any
That's
opportunity.
to me.
I can't help myself.
And
And on
Some
that note, in
material.
fact, I am sending love into chat. I see Da
Shane.
Freak. I see Doorknob Head. I see House of Comments. Once again, we are welcoming everyone to join us if they would like. The StreamYard link is in chat. However, we are going to
It'd be nice to have some
Shane.
theists in here.
I know. Hey,
Welcome,
you know, we welcome them, but I tell you, Leo, I swear it's because we give them too much time. It's too tantalizing. But Shane, we are skeptic and ranting on Does God Exist? What are your thoughts?
Hi. Well, so I took a bunch of notes, and then you guys said pretty much everything I wanted to say. So then I took some more notes, and then Leo said everything that I
Why is it
just
always
wrote down
me?
again.
Why isn't it like ever Randolph or Mark or somebody that's
I've got my fair share of blame as well, mate. Don't worry about that.
Well, maybe
Somebody
you
told
just
me
make the best point.
Nobody wants to go after.
Okay,
it
so
got really quiet that I okay, no, I didn't. I'm sorry. I thought it just got really quiet there. I thought I cut out.
Yeah,
thought the
no,
same
I thought I
You
cut
need
out
to get
too. Oh no, I see. I'm
very
still.
still.
Yeah, I can hear you, Shane. You're good.
There you go.
Okay, so
there, we're back.
the first thing is induction. Oh well, okay. Let me answer the question first. Does God exist? I'm going to say no. The first thing is induction. This was said earlier, but every time that we've found the answer to something, it's always been natural. So by using induction, we can say if we don't know the answer to something, then it's pretty likely that it's going to be an unknown natural thing, because every time we've ever found the answer to something, it's always been natural. So that was point one, but that's already been said. Well, okay, all of these have already been said. Divine hiddenness. If God did exist, we would expect to see certain things. You know, we would expect God to be able to communicate with us through a better method than holy books that were written 2,000 years ago or whatever, or through divine revelation, which is to anybody else is just hearsay. What's next? Okay, bad arguments. Street level argument. Well, I guess I call it street level, but like when you're on everyday conversations with theists, with believers, there's a lot of fallacies that come up, and usually it's about an appeal to tradition or an appeal to you know, the popularity or authority. It's some sort of external source, because, well, I guess I'm speaking more about, you know, Abrahamic religions, but a lot of theists usually get their epistemology externally from someone else that tells them what to believe and what to think. So if they say it, rather than thinking about it for themselves, if they have somebody telling them, or a bunch of people telling them, or this is what they were born into, that's a pretty common thing, and it just obviously fails. A lot of the apologetics, or pretty much every apologetic argument, can boil down to an argument from ignorance, which is like I said earlier, basically we don't know, therefore God. It's a God of the gaps. And yeah, I think Nick brought that up, that every apologetics argument is basically, well, we don't know what the answer for morality is, or we don't know what the answer for how life began, or this or that. And it all boils down to, well, then God must be this, because that's the best explanation that we can come up with. It's an abductive argument. And if we're going to get into philosophical things like Leo was talking about earlier, abduction is it commits a formal fallacy of affirming the consequent. It basically is, if P, then Q, therefore P. and that's logically invalid. Like even if
abduction
even if the
doesn't
premises are
always
true.
do that. Abduction is generally in inferring based off of what you know and your prior knowledge, whereas induction is based off of the knowledge that you gain about something as you experiment with it, and then deduction is sort of a they usually call that logical soundness, where it's the conclusion is entailed analytically in the premises given that they are true. But abductive arguments certainly can commit the affirming the consequent fallacy. That's one of the more popular fallacies that certain abductive arguments can and do commit. And Otangelo is notorious for presenting an abductive argument that just does exactly that with his fine-tuning argument, the way he argues it. I just wanted to provide that clarification.
Okay. Yeah. I guess the way I always understood abductive arguments was to be that, like, this is our best explanation. It's the argument from best inference, that sort of thing.
It's kind of probabilistic. It's kind of the most likely one.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So the way I see a lot of arguments from apologists that well, I guess you can kind of rework a lot of arguments to you can move the premises around and everything, but a lot of it I see as this affirming the consequent fallacy, where they say, if God exists, then morality exists. Morality exists, therefore God exists. Or if God designed the universe, then the universe appears designed. The universe appears designed, therefore God designed the universe. It's not a logically valid structure.
Yeah, my favorite one is William Lane Craig's moral argument, because it is kind of affirming the consequent. If God does not exist, then objective moral values and duties do not exist. Objective moral values and duties do exist, therefore God exists. It's assuming that God is the only explanation for morality. It's affirming that before having arrived at that conclusion.
Exactly. But what he does is he's sneaky about it. That was because he knows, like, he's smart enough to know that that's affirming the consequent fallacy. So he negates the premises that, so you, with the contrapositive, you can negate the two premises, and then so if it would be, if not P then not Q, Q therefore P, that's a valid premise, or that's a valid structure.
Craig is very sneaky.
But then that just sneaks carefully. But that just sneaks the fallacy into the first premise, and it just makes that.
But but if you listen carefully, when he rephrases his interlocutor's arguments after going on his spiel, he's switching words around so that their argument is phrased differently from what they originally stated, and then that's the point he argues. So it's more convenient for him. He does this a lot. He's really sneaky. You got to be very careful about
the way
he's a slimy gator.
The way he defends
I may
his
point out that he's an apologist, so that's what they do. They like to twist and turn things around. So
the way he defends his moral argument is actually really interesting. And Shelley Kagan sort of pointed this out in the debate that they had, where it seems all William Lane Craig does is argue, well, if atheism is true, is rape really wrong? Like that's literally all he's saying. Like, what is the difference between something being wrong and something being really wrong? Like, what's the difference?
Yeah. So him stating is atheism true just makes him sound completely ignorant to most atheists, because it's not even a proposition. But the other part of the issue is that he makes these sneering, laughing kind of gestures whenever he mentions the word atheism or atheist. And his disdain and his attitude toward atheism and atheists is quite demeaning, quite condescending. It's almost hateful. And it just kind of, it supports the stigma and subtly the ongoing vilification of atheists. So I have some problems with Dr. Craig, because I think his attitude is a problem, and it doesn't help the whole discourse. It's not productive.
I don't know. It depends who he's talking to, really. I don't agree with him, but I don't think that he's trying to dismiss atheism in the way that you're describing.
I don't think he's trying to dismiss it. I think he's just perpetuating a bad attitude about it, because I think he has a bad attitude about it.
I'm somewhere in between the both of you. I wouldn't go as far as to say that he's hateful or spiteful of atheism or atheists, but I would say that he generally, at least when he's like responding, like if he's on Capturing Christianity's channel and they're responding to like the worst, atheist arguments or doing something like that, or if when he's in a debate, not so much when he's with like somebody else that's a scholar or an academic, but otherwise he has this sort of, I would say that it is condescending, this sort of this condescending couldn't be bothered attitude with a lot of these people, like he's just better than them, and I don't really like that.
But
yeah, that
I think
that's kind of where I'm at with it. I don't think hate was a pretty strong word, but he's got some kind of disdain toward atheists and atheism. I suspect that deep down he's threatened by our freedom to not be under the thumb of some superpower or something.
I don't know if it's that. I think.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Okay. Well, I think it's more that I think he honestly thinks that atheism is absurd. Like it's ridiculous. Yeah. I think he thinks it's akin to flat Earth, or like we would think young Earth creationism. So for him trying to speak to someone, he's like, you really believe that? I don't think it's coming from this hatred or fear. I think it's just like, come on, like you don't believe in a God? Like it's
like look at the trees, look at the trees.
It's
the way the rivers flow.
Like when you see someone who is a flat earther or something, you're like, really? Like, come on.
Yeah, but
this is him promulgating the stigmatization of atheists and atheism, and that's where I have a problem with him.
Look, in my opinion, it's just the rhetoric of what he does in a debate. I mean, I was trying to think of the guy's name, but the Cosmic Skeptic, who's very, very good. He had some really good discussions with him where, they were very polite and very good to one another. And don't get me wrong, I have no doubt that when he gets on, sort of picking apart arguments, he can be dismissive. But I think atheists can do exactly the same thing. And I think that part of a debate, you're using rhetoric, and that is kind of his style.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
I'm not saying it's laudable or anything, but I think that is the style that he uses, and I got to say I have to concede it's very effective.
I did want to say though really quickly, just because I mean we've got to be fair here. Like I said, I do think that there are many times where Craig has this condescending, quote unquote, couldn't be bothered attitude. But Mark, I think you hit it on the head when you said a lot of atheists can be like that. I don't think anybody here would disagree if I said that at least seemingly Aaron Ra, when he has discussions with theists, seems to have a lot of disdain and dismissiveness of their position and of their arguments. And there's a lot of atheists online who engage that way on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, even on Discord. So, I mean, this isn't the one side or the other thing, but I also understand that we were talking about particularly Craig there. So there's also that.
I like Aaron Ra's argumentation.
So do I, and it's just his style, his rhetoric.
That's his style.
I just, and I'm not saying that William Lane, of course, William Lane Craig can be dismissive, but I don't know. I see it more as a rhetorical device rather than him actually trying to vilify atheism. But you're perfectly entitled to your experience of that, Randolph. I'm certainly not trying to take away from that. I just never saw it that way. Maybe the discussion I saw him had with Cosmic Skeptic, he seemed very, very cordial.
He was with Scott Clifton too.
Sorry?
He was with Scott Clifton too.
Well, he'll be cordial, but those things that I'm talking about, they're kind of subtle the way he does it. And if you'll notice it in, like, when he was debating with people like Christopher Hitchens, it was more prominent. But he's always got that kind of scoffing at our demographic, and that's what I have a problem with, because that doesn't help. He's part of the problem.
Look, it may very well be just what appeals to his base, to his people. I mean, it may just appeal to Christians when they do this. And I mean, Hitchens had his own rhetorical style, and
Oh, yeah.
vastly superior to William Lane Craig, in my opinion. But he had this certain style that gave, that did appeal to the rational thinkers, sort of a very rational viewpoint with, the humor mixed in. And I think I try not to be too critical of others' rhetorical devices during debate, because we all
I'm the same.
have some sort of, we all have some sort of rhetorical sort of strategy that we use to get our point across and appeal to others.
There's something to say there about that, because I definitely agree with that, because Vosh has even said, a lot of people say that, they'll start offering criticisms of the way that he approaches a lot of like conservatives and right wingers when he debates them, and they'll be like, but you're doing this and you're doing that, and then he'll be like, how? And then they can't explain it, and then after 30 minutes they're just like, you're just kind of rude, and just a little bit rude, and he's like, okay, and this is the fucking internet. I can't be rude. If you don't like it, pack up your shit and get the fuck out. Like, and I agree. Like, we're allowed to be rude to each other on the internet. I am not obligated to be nice. I will attempt to be respectful and cordial. But if that's obviously not going to work, then I may condescend you a little bit. I may scoff at you a little bit. I may be a little bit rude. That's just kind of the way that it's gonna go. Like my debate with Witsit Gets It, I was a little bit rude to him, but he's a fucking flat earther, and this is the internet. So.
We are telling them that their most treasured belief, something that they have believed since probably they could even have thoughts, is wrong. And so that's going to be uncomfortable, sometimes rude. But I think that overall, as long as we are searching for the right answers and we're being gentlemen and gentle ladies, that's all we can do is try and, help them come to see our point of view.
Materialist Dan makes a really good point there in the side chat. He says, too many bad ideas use civility to hide behind. And I can definitely attest to this. And this is why, and I'm going to use Vosh again, because if you watch, and I don't know how many people here actually like watch him consistently like I do, but I've seen him have many discussions with not just right wingers, but like full on people who are ethno nationalists, white nationalists, fascists, and they're quite respectful. They're in fact very respectful and formal and cordial. And Vosh is not. Vosh is kind of a dick. He's kind of mean. He's calling them names, and I'm okay with it because everything he's saying is fundamentally true. And what he's doing is he's trying to reveal the facade of kindness that these people put on to hide their abso-fucking-lutely atrocious ideas. And he doesn't give a shit that they're doing it. And that's one of the reasons why I love him, is that he's going to sit there and be like, oh, you're a fascist? Why are you such a piece of shit, dude? Even though this person has been nice and cordial to him, he's going to say that. Because, look, I'm sorry, if you are legitimately, genuinely a fascist, you're kind of a piece of shit. As simple as that.
Yeah, the problem is that you're then creating a sort of, well, in my opinion, you're creating an atmosphere where they're just going to, and the people that think that are like-minded will not, you are cutting ties to any attempt at reaching any of those people. And that can be a problem. It depends on the situation you're in, of course.
That's why he doesn't do it when he talks to the big names. Like when he talked to Charlie Kirk on Tim Pool's channel, he didn't do this. Because when he's online, the only people that are really watching him are his community. Right. The right wingers aren't watching him to begin with. The amount of people that he would move over, even if he was being nice, is about the same as if he was being rude to these people. That's why when he's online, he does it. Vosh. And he's not the only one. Destiny's the same way. Many of the streamers are like this. That's why when he's online, he's kind of a dick to some of these people. But in person, when he's talked with Tim Pool and Charlie Kirk, he's fairly respectful and cordial. He's not like that because he knows that this is a different platform. This is an in-person event, and there's probably significantly more people that aren't in my base that I need to appeal to now because that's his ultimate goal.
Yeah, I guess that was sort of what I was alluding to, because you have to find some common ground before you can get your.
It's all about the base. It's all about the base you're trying to appeal to. I think that's
it's a good song.
No treble.
Well, and that brings me to, I think I made this point last time I was on, is that when you ask people like apologists like William Lane Craig, is the Kalam the reason why you believe, or are these arguments the reason why you believe? They'll always say no. It's because of a personal experience. It's because of
personal
Um,
faith, something like that.
I prayed and I did this, and they're just trying to present something to us that they think would be convincing, but it's only convincing because they already accept the conclusion as true in the first place, and they're working backwards from that to
And that is
try to build
because
an argument.
there are two different goals.
That's what AP tried to say.
There are the non-believers who are trying to convey information, and there is the creationist who is trying to sound technical. And those are just two very different goals.
Well, I guess I don't think all theists are just trying to sound technical.
The apologists.
Well,
No,
it depends
not all
on
theists,
the like the
definitely
Frank
not.
Turek style ones, yeah. But there's certainly some very
about
respectable
Quantum John?
apologists out there.
So,
But I was going to say something about what Shane said because it's a really good. Oh yeah, Apologia made a tweet a few days ago, something like that, about how if apologetics works, if by work you mean like affirm what you already believe or something, and then Inspiring Philosophy tweeted it and said that this is no different than Christians or theists or whatever he said, saying you don't believe in God because you want to sin, except that it's not. And I didn't comment, but I should have. And what I should have commented is, but if you talk to like all of the popular apologists from Frank Turek to William Lane Craig and everybody in between, what you'll find is that all, or at least most of them, Alvin Plantinga has admitted this, William Lane Craig has admitted this, John Lennox has admitted this, most of them have admitted that these arguments aren't why they believe. So obviously Apologia's tweet had merit there, that these arguments aren't, that if apologetics works, by work you mean it just convinces you if you already are convinced, then yeah, there's truth to that. Because none of these people, none of the defenders of these arguments are legitimately convinced by them. They just use them to sort of bolster what they're already convinced of.
So the call should go out to any theist that has been convinced not on a personal experience, but on the strength of rational argumentation. I think we need to put a call out. Where are the theists that these arguments have swayed?
Okay.
Is because they don't actually have
Where's Justin?
good
Yesha.
reasons. If I could go and make that claim as I did earlier, there is no good reason to believe in a God, though I am waiting for someone to give me something other than revelation, prophecy, anything hearsay and anecdotal. But I love you, my theist brothers and sisters.
Well, I was talking to Freak earlier
too.
about prophecy, and yeah, I've got to go pretty soon, but I'll just cover it. Like I got his main prophecy, and the prophecy was the founding of Israel within a day, as alluded to in Isaiah. And it's
they love that one.
It's such, to my mind, it is such a weak prophecy, because like the war, the Arab-Israel war, it lasted over 9 months. And when you say, oh, but they declared independence in a day, it's like,
declaration.
Well, the US declared independence in a day. Everywhere that declares independence declares it in a day.
Right.
There's nothing special or unnatural about that. Every nation has a day that they became a nation. There's no country in the world that said, "Oh, we became a nation over a period of 9 months or a year or something." No, they all say, "Hey, this is the day we became a nation." I don't understand why that. And plus, the US went out to fulfill that. They went out to support Israel, creating the nation state of Israel. And they knew about the prophecy, and that's why they supported them. So I don't, if that's the best.
Gotta win over the evangelicals.
It's like the Matt Dillahunty. If you ask for a medium rare steak and you get one.
Matt Dillahunty.
Yeah, Matt Dillahunty.
Yeah, it's not a prediction.
So I actually saw that LPP streamed a few nights ago, and he's still on the same shit. Jeez, why do these guys never come with different? They just.
I would say if you end that sentence right there, we could be having a different podcast.
What did LPP do a stream about?
The usual fucking genetics and code and God and complexity, and it's.
I was on a stream the other night that Nephilim Free was on, and he's talking about how bad his son is because his son is homosexual. This is horrible. But
Nephilim Free has a gay son.
He's a horrible father, but
he's live right now.
Okay, but he was saying that a little bit earlier in that stream, that, or maybe the day before, that he has read the Bible and studied the Bible for the last 30 years. And it's almost like that's the only book he reads. And I'm thinking that's part of the problem. People need more books. They need to read different things and different points of view. And it's just they're reinforcing their tunnel vision by reading the same book over and over and over again. There are people like this.
Or to actually read their holy book through and through, because they don't seem to do that, and they seem very surprised when they're like, ooh, you mean we're supposed to kill the gays? Oh my God.
And now there's something interesting about Nephilim Free, though, is that he criticizes the Bible and says that the interpretations are wrong. And I find this happens a lot with people who've read their Bible over and over and over again and still remain Christian, is they tend to have a lot of criticism for how the translations are written. Seems to be a common thing that happens as well. So
I gotta go. I love you all. It was great.
Good
to
night,
be
Mark.
Here, but I'm gonna
Send the love, Mark.
thanks,
Good night,
Mark.
Mark.
We'll talk again
Peace
soon.
out, buddy.
Look at the link you sent.
I want to say something about having multiple reading the same book again and again, and the fact that you need.
Let's hear what you got to say. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny because I know a lot of people coming from Islamic tradition, and the recitation of the Quran is like one of the biggest thing you have to learn as a kid. The fact that I come from Saudi Arabia, where they teach it in school, it's one of the curriculum in school. You have to learn this much of the Quran before you graduate.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's another thing that the fact that all those forbidden knowledge, because to understand the situation in most of those dictatorial countries where they limit knowledge, they don't allow you to get books. A lot of the books you have there are limited to what they want and what they deem okay. So the fact
Why would you want to read anything else when you could just read the Quran? I mean, what could be better?
Exactly. It's the best book
you
ever.
fucking Americans, man. Quran. God, Quran. Oh, it's like a name. We gotta go Quran. She's really sick, guys. I'm sorry. I love making fun of my fellow Americans because
Hey, I can
they're
get
so,
you a glass
especially
of water if you want.
ones like Amy and James, not Randolph, not because he's not white, but because he's not an American. I got to make fun of my white American brethren, because white Americans are
blonde.
White. They are white.
Look, I can eat spicy food, and I don't like mayonnaise, and I'm gonna stand by those two things.
That's Amy's rope out, her lifeline out of whiteness. Hey, look, I can eat spicy food. Okay, I love it.
Well,
X the music. It's in Germany. What?
I was gonna say Amy is white with an asterisk. So.
Yeah. But the thing is, despite the fact that Amy is white, she has a very, very good understanding of what it is like to be in a marginalized demographic. So she certainly has that understanding under her belt. So she can understand even some situations that I have been in as a person of color, even though she hasn't experienced that bigotry in the same way, because, you know, one is based on race, the other one is based on gender. It's still bigotry. And when you experience that's an experience.
Yeah, I know. Like, one of my favorite thing that someone ever told me, the person is half white, half Vietnamese, and he told me when I applied to this job that I'm working on that there's a lot of people like me there, which I didn't understand at the moment what he meant by like me, but I think he meant immigrant to the United States. So when I started working there, we have a lot of population, Asian population, and most people are white that work at the same place. So I was like, they are not really like me. They're more closely like you. But I don't know exactly what he meant by like me, like you. I try to understand a lot of the like references to race and like I don't understand the fact. Why do you need to like be racist? That I don't understand it. Yet at the same time, my dad, when he was in the United States visiting, he looked at a mixed couple and he said, they want us to be like this. Which I was like, who is they and want us to do what? And he said, they, the evil, invisible people, want us to mix races. And I was like, oh, I wasn't expecting that from you. So, like,
Okay, then.
yeah,
It's always a conspiracy, though. I
Yeah,
mean,
there
I've
is-
heard everybody,
yeah.
but always
Satan's
a
always out to
conspiracy.
get
It's
you.
Amy's Jewish lizard family, and they're trying to
I want you to
control
know
the
if that
world,
were
right?
true, I would be so fat. I mean, I would go out and get green makeup right now if I was part lizard, but I'm skeptical.
But wait, you mean you're not?
I'm apparently
You're not?
cannot control space lasers.
Yeah, Jews aren't part lizard. What are you talking about? That's
Oh,
not true.
I had a yes, not at all.
No.
We're gonna hide all of those tests.
It's
that we took.
common conspiracy theory out there that the Jews are shape-shifting reptilian lizards.
Yeah, that's how they differentiate them. And 23andMe, that's why they have special DNA for them.
See, it's all making sense. I will say, when I worked at Walgreens, I had, as the lovely beauty advisor there, I had a gentleman as a shift advisor who was Muslim who found out that I was ex-Jewish. I would say just found out the Jewish family thing, and he got super excited. And he found it like his goal to become friends with me and be like, we become friends, and just Israel Palestine is just, it's all over. And so, very sweet gentleman, but I wish would happen more often. I will say we are coming up to about 20-ish or so minutes of Does God Exist before we go into outros. We have been Skeptic and Ranting. I kind of love the fact that, I mean, I would totally accept it. I would want to know if there was evidence for a God, but it has been very unifying. You lose, like we've been talking about, just a lot of the baggage, a lot of this tribalism, a lot of the prejudice when you drop nonsense views. Oh, Leo just read some in chat. That is what that face is.
Not in your chat. Not in your chat.
Is it you and Nephilim Freeze chat?
No, it's an LPP chat.
Oh,
Smokey and
LPP,
fucking
gotcha.
Is
CJ
he?
are going
LPP is live right now.
Yeah, Smokey Saint, the synagogue, CJ. They're
Oh my.
they're beefing, dude. Why does
In
every
chat?
fucking button? Yeah,
Well,
it's fucking hilarious.
they're making me draw weird lines. You know,
What are they
if
fighting about?
Smokey and Gavin are going to
CJ called
defend
him
Mulder.
Smoke Stain.
What are they fighting about?
I don't know, dude. I have no fucking clue what these people fight
Those
about. All I
guys
know
need
is
to
they
grow up.
fight.
Well, it's a
And it's
cannon
fucking-
battle.
I don't want them to
Those
grow
guys
up because if they grow up, then I lose my entertainment. So let them be the little children they are.
There'll be more. Don't you worry about it.
No,
And-
these ones are funny. I want to see these ones. These are the ones I want to see. It's
Yeah,
it's like
I
that
think-
whole. It's like that whole. But it's like, it's like, oh well, there are other fish in the sea. It's like, sure, but I want that motherfucking fish. God damn it! I don't give a fuck about the other fish.
He wants Smokey.
I love how
Smoke.
John Maddox's initials are LPP. Really makes sense. But what I find hilarious is that he thinks that DNA is like computer code.
Well, that's his shtick. The unfortunate
Intelligent
thing
design.
is that that's not why he believes. It's not like
No, I know.
the
Right.
genome.
Yeah.
That is Bubbles' reason. Bubbles, if you're in the evolution
I haven't
isn't
seen him
real,
yet.
is why he said God exists, which I see no connection. I didn't see him as the evolution guy, but LPP sells himself as this is why I dislike it, because it feels politically correct. To go back to something that you were kind of talking with Vosh, it just tell it like it is. Just say what you actually mean. Tell us why you really believe. Don't try to sell it off because you're not a geneticist. I think LPP, you're a great human being. I have had fantastic debates with you, but you've told me firsthand that you believe. I don't that people are questioning this story. I don't know if it's real or not, but you have told me that you survived a car crash. You woke up and were like, oh, God,
I'm
serve
not dead.
you now. Yeah, no, this is, you made me live. Wasn't the person who found the car or my body or the doctors who kind of healed me or my body who kind of like regenerated and all this. But nonetheless, he goes out trying to sell creationism, which is always going to feel dishonest because that's not why he believes. Go out telling it. You should be out telling your story day in, day out. That story should convince others. If not, it should not convince you.
Isn't that the fact about almost all religious people that I have met? It's always something else. Don't argue. It's the same thing when they come up and debate the theist idea of they are Christian. Don't just come and debate a God exists. Tell me why your God exists. That's why I don't like that. Yeah, I don't
They'd
like
rather not.
the Kalam, because the Kalam could be used for any God you want, and even not a God, just
They
anything
grant that
beyond.
though. They
Yeah.
grant that. The point isn't the point of the Kalam is not to show that a certain God exists.
I know the point, like it, but it doesn't show a God exists. It shows something behind that exists, behind the universe that exists. But the thing is, don't come and argue with me that a God exists. Tell me why your special God exists.
But
Why does
I mean,
Jesus have to
you
die
don't
on
need
the
to go
cross
that
for my
far, do you?
sins? What?
I mean, if your point was to falsify atheism, then you don't need to prove any one specific particular God. You just need to show that there is a God.
I know that. I said it. I know that that's their argument and that's their way.
Yeah, I guess the point I'm making is I don't think that we should obligate them to necessarily arguing in favor of their specific God. I don't think there's any problem with them just arguing a general theistic or deistic perspective.
Yeah, but if you are Christian, tell me why you are Christian. I don't want to hear about you why there is a God. Tell me why your God works.
And the reason
that's
why,
my own personal opinion. Is like I'm okay arguing a God exists or doesn't exist, but tell me why yours.
Because Kalam was created specifically for skeptics and non-believers. It's almost like they know that their religious stories aren't going to convince anyone, and so they have to create these nonsense apologetics and then try and go out there. And they get a few nibbles every once in a while, but generally speaking, these arguments are bad.
Yeah, I love the fact that like the Kalam, the history of the Kalam argument itself from like previous, it's used by every religion possible you could think of, especially in the Western hemisphere, that they used it all. And it's I don't know, it leaves a bad taste in my mouth when
that happens often to me in the stream.
I know. So like stuff like this, it doesn't. Sean, just recognize it.
It took a minute.
It was worth it, though. Always worth it.
Focus, Newman. Focus.
Newman, focus.
F-U-C-U-S. What does that spell?
A great weekend.
Darth will never live that one down.
Wow.
I like to think he thinks about me often.
He probably does think about your gender.
I bet he does.
What happened?
I gotta mute that stream. Holy fuck! Standing for Truth just makes me laugh every time he opens his mouth and says another stupid fucking thing about genetic entropy. Oh, they tested that on the H1N1 virus.
Genetic entropy. Another silly concept. Another
silly.
We're de-evolving.
That one was funny.
No, idiocracy is amazing, but no, that really isn't happening. We are not de-evolving.
So another point I wanted to make was that as far as with apologetics and everything, these are all just rational arguments, and I'm an empiricist, so like at the end of the day, they're just people kind of arguing and talking about things that, look, if we don't have empirical basis for something, you're not going to be able to convince me with just a rational
Can I
argument
ask you a
alone.
quick question?
Sure.
What is truth?
I usually go with the correspondence theory, that which corresponds to reality.
How did you determine that?
How did I determine what?
How did you determine that is true?
How did I determine that is true?
That the correspondence theory of truth is true. I'm assuming you take it to be true. Is it true that what is true corresponds to reality?
In my experience, yes.
Did you discover that empirically? What I'm trying to show is that empiricism is kind of cringe. It fails heavily with respect to epistemology because there are numerous epistemological things we can't show empirically. There's also a lot of like pretty much all of moral philosophy and ethics and meta-ethics is far beyond the realm of strictly empirical. Some have tried to fit it into an empiricist framework. I don't think it works. I mean, I'm not like sitting here trying to necessarily like bash empiricism, but I
was going to say, because you'd want some.
Sounds like you kind of were.
Empiricism, it's like, I would at least at the minimum, I would call maybe say I was a verificationist, but I don't know if I could commit myself to specifically empiricism.
You don't
but I am not an empiricist or a verificationist or any form of positivist.
I think that empirical evidence would still be the best evidence that a God could give us, and the fact that he doesn't seems to be evidence.
I'm not
he
saying
at least doesn't want us to know through
so
the best method possible.
My point was that like if we don't have like prior basis for something, then a rational argument wouldn't be enough to convince me. Like you wouldn't be able to use a rational argument to convince me that unicorns live on Mars or something like that. I would need that to be verified.
Yeah, I mean, there is a realm in which empirical evidence certainly is what we should seek, and I would say that there are realms where empirical evidence is simply not going to have any utility at all in determining if something is true or false.
And apologetics try to use rational arguments to verify things that there is no empirical basis for.
So do I as a naturalist. I don't think there's anything wrong with rational argumentation. I think that we should all strive for that.
I'm not saying there's anything wrong with rational argumentation. I'm saying, but at the end of the day, if you're going to try to convince me that a God exists, you're going to need more than just an argument. Like I'm going to need some sort of verification that that argument is true, that those premises are sound.
Well, what if the argument was deductively valid, where the conclusion is just analytically entailed by the premises? You wouldn't need empirical evidence. Like the argument would just analytically be true.
I would still.
I guess, like if I said that what was that?
I would have to need. Well, I mean, I have to verify that the premises were sound.
Of course, yeah. You have to show that the premises are in fact true.
Yeah, and even then, I would say that it depends on the nature of the claim. If the claim was something that we didn't already have like an empirical basis for, I would say there could be a flaw in my reasoning and the way I'm accepting this argument. Like I would probably need some demonstration of that to be true. Like I don't think I'd be able to just accept that argument.
Yeah, I agree with that with respect to like concrete facts, but in me personally, I'm a nominalist, so I'm going to say that things that relate to epistemology, things that relate to ethics, meta-ethics, moral philosophy, they really just consist in human abstract thought, and that's not like a thing the way that like this lighter is a thing. And so we're not, when we talk about things with respect to those domains, empirical data is just not going to really have much of a place with respect to that.
Well, okay.
And
I
it would
guess
be
this-
interesting to figure out which they would put their deity in. Is their deity more like a concept in their brain?
They would say that
like
God
a
is
physical?
concrete, because God causally interacts with things. Like he created the universe, he does miracles. So since he stands in causal relations, as the phraseology generally goes, that's what it means to be concrete. A concrete object is an object that stands in causal
So
relation.
it's physical. We could pick a cup of God.
Well, I would say that yes, concrete means physical, but not everybody, even amongst atheists or
Get some
naturalists,
empirical
would
testing.
necessarily agree with that. But that is that if something can cause other things or be caused by other things, then it's a concrete. We would say that it is a concrete thing.
But, okay, let's get some empirical testing. It's in the physical world.
And that's the thing, is that if you commit to the idea that God created the universe, that God does miracles, that God interacts with the natural world, you need to provide some sort of mechanisms, for some modes through which God interacts with that world. This is often referred to as the interaction problem. And theists really don't like it when you bring this up, because it's a problem that theism really can't overcome.
I think at this point, Leo, we're back to agreement. So, And okay, guys, we got like 4 more minutes before we're gonna wrap up into outros. Any more questions or thoughts between each other? We are Skeptic and Ranting on does God exist? The classic theological question. And we've been having fun. I will say.
Oh, is that me? Sorry.
Oh, no. We're about to start outros in a second, but if anyone wants to go back and forth, if anyone wants to join us, you basically have like 5 more minutes left. I mean, we have been begging, me, Gavin, everyone else down here.
Amy's on her
knees. Exactly. Begging for theists, especially young earth creationists. I guess the metaphorical theists that are rational and skeptic can also join on too. But I mean, if you believe the earth is flat, if you believe the earth is 6,000 years old, which is the equivalent, if you believe vaccines aren't real, because that really is evolution, come on, and we can have a conversation. Oh, send in love. We are ranting up.
There's that slogan again.
The what? The what happened?
Oh, Amy's slogan. I recommend that she just make her slogan.
Hearts?
Sending love.
Sending love. Sending so many hearts out there. Because, hey, there's a lot of streams out there. They're just they're pumping out that hate. We here, James W. and myself, we pump love along with this whole panel.
Pumping love.
Pumping love. And if the cops ask you, just say it was really awesome.
I've pumped love, and living in Iowa, I've pumped shit too.
Oh my. I feel like those
agriculture
of the
is what I mean.
spectrum of pumping, I feel like those are the two far dichotomies there.
I should clarify that's like agriculture, like cow shit, pig shit, stuff like that. I'm not like pumping porta potties. I wouldn't fuck with human
that would be
feces.
a bad job.
Well,
it
would be a bad job for me, because I don't want to go anywhere near human feces. This is why I'm really, really glad I'm not gay, because I don't like butt stuff. Buttholes kind of gross me out. Like, why would I put any part of my body near the human orifice from which fecal matter is excreted? That's just fucking gross and unsanitary, and I'm just not into that.
Straight and like butt stuff.
Yes, you can.
As someone pansexual,
and I don't.
I just like all of the organs out there, and so
I like vaginas. I like vaginas. I think vaginas are really nice. I think they're great. They're soft and squishy and warm.
Too.
They're soft and squishy and warm and just creamy and just all around. It's hard to have a bad time with a vagina.
But I do like a good penis. That's
Possible.
the problem.
I'll pass you up on that one. I will
I
pass you up on that
understand.
one.
Send a Damie. Send a
More
Damie.
for me. I
Oh,
like
for me.
hamburgers and hot dogs.
On Twitter yesterday, somebody tagged me on a news article about some woman who's making donuts that look just like vaginas. They're all decorated in pink and everything. I'll try to find a link for you.
Yes,
I
materialist
like that
Dan. I will always
entire
turn a
sentence,
stream into
Randolph.
talking about pussies. Because who doesn't like vagina?
You
Okay,
started with
half
that.
the country or half the population has a vagina, and the other population wants to get into a vagina. Vaginas are great. Why we should talk about vaginas more often.
Sounds
No,
like
not-
This is why I assume
a lot of
God's a
thought into
female.
this.
Leo,
There's
you
no
remind me of an argument that I had years ago when I first came to the United States in college, and the girl at the other end was like, "No, I don't like them. I don't want them." And
What, penises?
about talking about vaginas and how great they are, and she didn't want it because it just the fact that she had vagina meant that she is less in society than other people,
Mhm.
which is sad fact. But a lot of people interact with it that way. It's funny that like we talk about it here as like a joke or whatever, but in reality the standard of language and the standard of society is different, that the female part is always less than. That's why when earlier in the discussion we were talking about gods, the reason God must be male is because penis is better than vaginas, and no girls allowed in our club, and that's the situation.
Wiener. I'm sorry.
Yeah, exactly.
Fucking South Park. I
Nothing
love
but
it.
Wiener, floppy wiener, floppy wiener.
Sounds like a song I've missed. Okay, I'm okay with that.
Sounds like a good weekend. Once again, if you're straight, gay, or bi on this podcast, you get a piece of the pie. And with that, we are moving into outros.
American Pie.
We have been Skeptic and Ranting. I swear
Do
on
it.
Is God Real? We are bringing in the clowns, the mimes. We're bringing them in. Woohoo! What is up, Shane? We have been Skeptic and Ranting on Is God Real? I hope you had a fantastic time. Where can people find you? And of course, what are your final thoughts?
Well, you can find me, just search my name. It's Shane Billowitz on YouTube and TikTok. I just started my channel, so I only have like 3 videos.
Congratulations.
But yeah, thank you so much thanks. Thank you so much for having me on. It was a lot of fun. I guess final thoughts are no, God does not exist. And before, like I said, because I basically induction is that, it's an inductive case. Everything we found the answer to is natural, so it's reasonable to assume that things we don't know of have an unknown natural cause for their existence. And the way we define supernatural, it kind of seems like kind of what Leo said earlier, is that supernatural is kind of synonymous with that which doesn't exist or that which is impossible. A lot of people say supernatural means it defies the laws of physics. Well, isn't that pretty much the same thing as saying it's impossible? And another thing is, if science could detect the natural, then it could detect the supernatural, then it would just become natural. It would just be part of the natural world. Like if there were ghosts and we could detect ghosts, they would just be like, oh, ghosts are a natural phenomenon because we can. So it just seems like, by definition, the supernatural is not possible.
That's a good point.
Thank you so very much, Shane. And we also put your channel up there, so go check
thank
it
you.
out. Ooh, that's right. We got to get you to 100. And all right, we're
That's
moving
right.
right
Shane the
down.
Skeptic has something to say about that. Says, there you go. Atheist named Shane
That's
our
true.
goat.
Very true.
And all right, we're moving right down the list. Mubarak, I hope you are doing well. We have been skeptic and ranting on Does God Exist? Where can people find you? And what are your final thoughts?
Final thoughts. God doesn't exist because
Boom.
imaginary friends don't exist too. Unicorns, fairies don't exist. Supernatural, exactly what Shane said. If we could study it, it's natural cease to be supernatural. Pure God exists outside time and space. That means that they don't exist. It's funny that why all those miracle and claims of interaction with the universe of any god seems to be earlier or closer to be hoax or fakes when they're nowadays in modern times. So it's really, I think that's burden of proof and that they have to explain it themselves. Is like, where is your god? Why isn't they are here, and why aren't they interacting with us right now? And personal experience is always hearsay. It doesn't mean anything to me. And one personal experience could lead to multiple results. Two people could survive a burning building, and one will attribute it to God, and the other one will attribute it to, I don't know, common sense, knowing how to escape a burning building. Where to find me? You will find me on Aaron Shows, the Quran show of Infidel Aaron Ross, and we have 4 episodes left, and we'll be done with the Quran.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So we've been doing it for
Woohoo!
years now, a couple of years at least.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm. So I think we have 4 episodes left. We have the next episode is this Sunday because Aaron is gonna be gone in 2 weeks, so we had to shift a little bit. So next Sunday is gonna be the next episode. Usually, if anything beyond this, I'm here. I am gonna go for it. Peter's channel, co-hosting with him whenever there's an interaction with Muslim, ex-Muslim, or so. I want to note something. That there is an online protest for Arabic-speaking agnostics, non-believers, atheists, because most Arabic-speaking people are hiding due to the fact that few apostates you'll be killed. If you speak about it, you'll be killed in general in those countries. So there is a protest on the 22nd of February 2022, which they picked it up by all those twos because the biggest arguments, you don't want to be a Unitarian or Trinitarian, so you don't believe in one God or 3 gods, against Christian and Muslims or so. So if you could, I'll try to find links and put them in and send them to Amy for support for that movement, to say that, yeah, Arabic speaking non-believers exist, and it's time to stand up and get our rights.
Woo-hoo! That sounds fantastic. Are you a mod, Mubarak?
I am.
Oh, okay. Then you should. Sounds good. Either you could send links in there, or I'll send it myself if you send it to me.
I shall do that.
Woohoo! Thank you so very much, Mubarak. And go check out Aaron Ra and Pieter, our very own who comes on here. Gonna go for it. And all right, I do want to give a shout out to Leophilius. I think he scurried away because he's like, ooh, Theus, which I'm telling you, it is a canon battle. They are arguing because it's religion. What are they going to argue over? Oh, my book says this. Well, it actually says this here. Well, if I interpret it over here, and then, the other religious does it over there. But if you enjoyed his content, you can go check out Leophilius down there. He is fantastic and one of our great non-believer debaters. And all right, we're going to go right down the list, and then we're heading out to the after show in Discord, the link of which is in the description, and I will send it in chat. But Randolph, we have been skeptic and ranting on Does God Exist? We've been having some theological fun. Hope you had a good time. Where can people find you? And of course, what are your final thoughts?
Well, I don't believe. I'm not finding the arguments convincing that have been presented to me. I don't feel that I need to have a reason for not believing, because it is the default. It's good if people do have a reason, but I don't think it's necessary. And I think that's the freedom that we as atheists have at our disposal, and we should enjoy it as much as we can. Why live a life of stress of having to justify absolutely everything and every belief and non-belief that we can have, there are many people who will just take things on faith without having any reason for it. And I'm not saying that justifies it for ourselves. It's just a natural thing for us. So we should definitely try to push back against people who attempt to vilify and stigmatize atheists and the atheism demographic, because there are people who do that. And I was serious when I was talking about Dr. William Lane Craig having that kind of sneery attitude when he mentions the word atheism. His tone of voice changes a bit, like he thinks the whole thing is like some funny predicament or something, and it's not. This is a very normal thing. We are a large demographic throughout the world, and
growing.
Yes, it seems to be growing. I think that the growth may be a little bit misleading, because there, I think, are a lot more people who are atheists but just aren't mentioning it and aren't stating it publicly. So they already were. It's not like people have deconverted. They've already atheists, but they're just in situations with family pressures, government pressures, social pressures, and whatnot to not come out and say it publicly that they're atheists. And we really need the world to be in a better state of affairs for everyone, where people are free to associate with any demographic that they possibly can, and not be stigmatized for it, and not be vilified for it, not be criminalized for it, not have our human rights violated for it. These things are very serious. And even though people like William Lane Craig and many like him only do minor things to kind of make minor criticisms of atheism, we need to push back against all of it, because they lay a foundation for the extremists, eventually the other people who are more strongly worded against, have a stronger attitude against us, and then they lay a foundation for more who have a stronger attitude against us, and it climbs all the way up the chain to the extremists. And so we need to stop it right at the roots and say, look, we're not saying that, and what I'm promoting is that we're not saying that the theists should be vilified or stigmatized. Definitely not. But we also want to make sure that atheists are not stigmatized or vilified as well. We want the equal opportunity. We want the equal treatment. We want the equal benefit of human rights and being equal under the law, and all these kinds of things. This is very important. And I think this is a really important recipe for future society building that will make quality of life better for everyone ultimately. Thank you very much.
We only want to raise quality of life for everyone in the galaxy.
Yeah. Oh, and if people want to know more about what I'm doing with we run an organization called Canadian Atheists. You can find us at our website at www.canadianatheists.ca. We aren't trying to deconvert people, but if somebody does have questions and they are looking to deconvert, we're available to try to be helpful to people. And ultimately, I think what's most important is that people get to decide for themselves what to do and when to change any ideology in their lives. And then that way, that kind of a decision is more genuine and will have a lot more meaningful value to the person who's made the decision entirely on their own. And what I want to see happen is that when people come into do leave their religion and become atheists, that they are feeling quite comfortable in the atheism demographic, that they find the diversity, that they find there's a lot of friendly people, and there are a lot of really good people in our demographic, contrary to the beliefs of people like William Lane Craig and Jordan Peterson, who make subtle hints and sometimes direct false accusations about us as a group. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Randolph.
Thank you so very much, Randolph. In fact, you can also find him at youtube.com/Randolph Richardson, and that's Randolph with an F.
Yes.
No matter what autocorrect tells you. Yeah.
Thank you so very much, Randolph.
And Amy, I'm looking forward to you adding that sending love as your slogan on your future materials. I think that
Randolph,
so well.
I'm just sending you love. Thank you so very much, the Godfather of Atheism.
Thank you.
With that, we are handing it to the pilot.
Oh, where's the pilot?
Right. Well, I would say the true pilot is.
He's taking a nap right now.
Oh, he's taking a nap. Okay.
Taking a nap.
Really, who's running the shots? But we are handing it over to James.
So there's no pilot right now. Okay.
Our producer took a nap, but
well, sometimes you gotta relax after trying to, I would say, control the world. But as cats do.
All that works. Rearranging that litter box and having fun in there, kicking litter out, doing all the things they love to do.
And you know the great thing about both humans and cats, James? We can prove they exist.
What is the one thing I read online? Like you just got trained by an animal who poops in a box in the corner of the room.
Oh, yeah, I know. I mean, we call them pets, but I mean, who really is running the shots here?
There you go. But thanks, guys, for watching. And wow, 25 people still watching at 4:30 in the morning. That's amazing. We love you guys. Thanks for tuning into this very thought-provoking discussion. Thanks to the people on the panel for coming on and having a great discussion with us. We will be back before you know it.
That's right.
God doesn't exist.
Be back with the cat.
Thank you so very much, James. And of course, we're gonna say this over and over. Mark it on your calendar. James W. versus Ken Hovind, March 11th.
Standing for truth, March 11th.
Can I just remind people about my stream coming up?
Sure.
Do it, Randolph.
Sunday morning, there'll be at 0800 Pacific time. It should be about 1100 Eastern time. It will be. I'll be live streaming on my YouTube channel. The panel of 5 or 6 of us who will be answering the question or responding to an audience who's going to try to convince us that a god or a goddess exists. It went very well 2 weeks ago, and we'll be doing another one of these. So I'll be promoting that sometime this week on Twitter, and you'll see it showing up in YouTube. Thank you very much.
Woo-hoo. Go check that out and all of the wonderful non-believer content out there.
Yes.
Woo-hoo. And sending love, Peter. Rendering something cool. I hope that it is something awesome. I'm looking forward to it. Oh, I know. Let me tell you, rendering can be a bitch. It's funny. I had a pause as if this isn't a late night stream or a naughty stream. Who cares what the time is? Oh my. We are sending love to everyone out
At the
there
girl dick level.
at the girl dick level, the commander girl dick level.
It's
It
coming
is
up.
always funny. If you go on Twitch, it's like, this is naughty. Oh my, are you okay with that? That's a different type of...
Bob Larson is not okay with it, Amy. He is not
oh
okay with
my.
it.
I don't know. We'll check his browser history. He may. You never know. You never know,
You think he
James.
might do an Alex Jones?
Look, the people who protest too much about... I know there's some people out there that are always like, oh, you can't say that every time. I just classically hate gays. It's like, okay, that's fine. Is that app? It rhymes with Minder account. It's just a Minder account. That's fine. I'm sure it's not in bathroom
Didn't
stalls.
you ran into Joshua Herbel on there?
Oh my. But I hope you all had a fun time on this episode of Skeptic and Ranting. Does God exist?
Woohoo!
Woo-hoo! That's right. Where tonight we discussed the age-old theological question of does a deity exist at all, and had some fun that apparently transcends reality. Oh my.
Goes with the fucking trans again.
Look, I am going to transition into this so that I can transition out of this so that we can transition to Discord, James. I will do it. In fact, I want to thank my co-host, James W.
Thanks. Someone said we need a translator.
Oh.
Toto,
my. Oh, someone thinks they're very punny, do they? That's what they always do.
Toto once sponsored a group of zombie missionaries. They blessed the rains down in Africa.
In fact,
always said do a version of that where some evil corporation goes to steal the rains down. Like, I stole the rain from Africa.
We apparently stole the rainbow, but don't tell them that.
Apparently God wants that back. That's why he's so angry making storms.
I know. Well, he used it to kill someone, or at least he drowned the entire planet, and then there was a rainbow.
Yeah, beautiful. And we're perverting this beautiful symbol that God put, where God made it so that water would break light apart into its constituent colors. He made that property just as a sign that he would not flood the earth again. Thank you, God, Amy. Thank you, right, Amy? I mean, thank God. He said he would not flood. He would not genocide the whole world again by flood. So
now did be more creative.
Did God manage to flood the world without mixing salt water and fresh water?
That's right.
You must have, Randolf.
Mobarak knows what I'm talking about.
Because of the
in the Quran, you can't mix, really?
It says the waters don't mix, the fresh and the salt water.
Yeah, the Quran is water supremacist. You cannot mix water.
No water mixing.
That's water.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, sponsored by religion. But yes, I want to thank my co-host, James W., along with our guests, Randolf, Nick, Leophilius, Mark, Mobarak, and Shane. As well as all the people in chat, our awesome mods who make this stream so great, and of course, lovely viewers like you. If you enjoyed the show, please like, follow, or subscribe. It really does help, because then also you get access to that bell icon to be set to all, which will give you reminders to see our premieres or join our live streams. After the show, we will be heading over to the Skeptic and Ranting Discord server, the link of which is in the description below. Or hey, leave a comment once the video's done. Lastly, if you'd like to help us make even more content, we offer some perks for our supporters by checking out our Patreon at patreon.com/Amy Newman. I am Amy Newman, and we will see you all on the
Good night,
next
guys.
episode of Skeptic Ball Z. Good night, everyone.
A 15-foot
Good night.
whale penis.
Night.
A 15-foot.